Testing 1 2 3. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you guys can. Oh, let me turn this up a little bit. Maybe you couldn't hear me as loud. Okay, I see the judge. Okay, we're gonna be on time today. Um, I took my braids out, so I washed it. Took my braids out Saturday, all night Saturday, and washed it Sunday. No, I actually washed it today because I want to give it time to breathe. And then I let the shampoo sit in my hair for like an hour, wash it again, sit, wash it, condition. So now it's curly, but I'm getting my hair done on Wednesday. So yes, I'm having a cute, not good hair day today. So just a little FYI, but I'm still pretty. Happy Monday, everybody. This is Holy Monday, the day after Palm Sunday. And we have ants. It's officially spring. You know how some people have roaches in their house? We don't have roaches or mice or rats. But when it gets warm, like when spring comes, we get ants. And I leave my patio door open. So I'm gonna have to get something for that. Because I'm seeing some ants crawling. Well, 8 ants crawling on the wall. But anyway, all right. I see the judge backstage. I'm gonna wait till he gets settled. We're gonna have a good show. Thank you, Shirley. You know, well, sometimes you got to do the natural with the leave-in conditioner so it could be curly and not, not too nappy, even though I love my naps. So yeah. Good show. We're gonna have a good show today. Listen, the main topic, Carmelo Anthony got his bond lowered from $1 million to $250,000, which is way more reasonable, right? That's fair. And he should be released today, no later than tomorrow. And his conditions are house arrest and he has to wear an ankle monitor. And of course, we're probably going to talk about that in the second hour. And the Judge Joe Brown, is going to break down what happens next. Like, what is usually the procedure after that? So, we're going to stay on top of this case. I want to talk a little bit about the DA and a little bit about Carmelo Anthony's new lawyer. The dad gave a statement to the New York Post as well. Um, but we are going to start off with the Blue Origin. Yeah, Gail, Jeff Bezos' fiance, Katy Perry. I don't know the other ladies' names, but they all went up to orbit and came down. That was pretty cool. And the president of El Salvador visited the White House today, visited Trump. Talk about that. And we're going to talk about some new child support laws in Texas, which I wholeheartedly agree. And a little bit of sprinkle of DEI, and of course, a little bit of more sprinkle of pop culture. Give a little Diddy update. Yeah, he's released already. Okay. Can you guys email me the link of him being released? How do you know he's released? I believe he's released because I saw him walk. Oh, it's the video. I gotta look that up, honey. Yes. All right. So, Judge, I'm assuming that you are situated. Yes. Hi. How are you?
I'll manage.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see myself now and make arrangements for this to work.
What kind of hat is that?
Just a boonie hat.
Thank you, George. George, can you send me the video of him walking out, please, George? So I want to start off with I mentioned this to you earlier. Blue Origin, that's Jeff Bezos' name of his spacecraft company. And his fiance. Let me see if I could pull it up. I could have sworn I saved it. Oh, here we go. Is this it? I thought it was another one. Wait a minute. I think I have a history here. So they lifted off to outer space. And I thought that was pretty cool. Let me just fast forward here a little bit. This commercial. So you had Katy Perry, she's a pop singer, Gayle King, who is Oprah's bestie, and Jeff Bezos' fiance. I forgot her name, but she was really the leader of like the crew. And this is after they came down. That's Oprah crying. I think that's probably Gail's father. So it was an all-female space crew going to um orbit in Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin.
Wasn't a crew, it was some tourists.
Well, okay, Taurus, yes.
And why should I care?
Well, you know, this is something I think like his company is trying to do. Um,
So it's Girlfriend's Day.
yeah, girl power, woman power.
No woman power. They didn't put themselves on it. They're girlfriends. So Girlfriend's Day, tourist. Okay. Yeah.
But okay, wouldn't you love to get in something like that and
Yes, I would, but it wouldn't be newsworthy.
it would be for you if you did it.
Oh yeah, for me, I'd enjoy it. I'd love to, even if I thought there was a high probability of not making it back, just to take the ride. But what do I care about this? It didn't advance anything. Why should anybody care if I got on one? Why should anybody care if you take a trip to the Caribbean or vacation there? I know everybody posts this nonsense on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, but nobody really gives a damn. It's just a satisfaction for their egos. But I have other stuff that I've done in life, so I don't have to deal with such trivia. It'd be a nice trip, but why do I care? Why should I care?
Because it's like advancement in our technology and our space and
They
going
didn't
out into
advance
space.
anything. If they weren't, if it wasn't already there, they wouldn't have been able to go. So how about we celebrate the people that came up with the technology? I don't care about the little side stuff, fluff, girlfriends going on the trip that their boyfriends or girlfriends sent them on. I give less than a damn. That ain't my thing.
So family business said they just passengers.
Yeah, tourist.
Well, I think that's a cool tourist
Yeah,
thing.
but so what
Okay,
about them?
all right.
What?
So
Why do we celebrate them? So
what if
what's
okay,
the
so
point?
what if this company is making it like a touristy trip where people could
Yeah,
purchase?
it's
Would you
available.
do it?
Yeah, they advertise it, but I'm not going to spend that amount of money on a trip like that. I mean, it might be a bucket list thing, but no.
I'm talking about right now, if you could do it.
If I thought it was a wise expenditure of money, but what it's costing, I have a lot better I could do with it.
But,
I know that Roger King got Oprah so she could send her girlfriend, what's her name,
yeah,
Gate something. Yes, she could send her up there, and all the rest of the guys could send their girlfriends up there. So
Roger King is dead. What are you talking about?
he made her money.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The man behind Oprah.
Yeah, he discovered her. He auditioned. He told me 350 women. He was looking for the poster child for ugly female stay-at-home America, and he got it. And she's been very successful. He made her money for her. He also discovered Dr. Phil
Mhm.
and did her book club thing for her. Set up the guests she put on. So
And
real,
and Oprah set up her best friend Gail.
yeah, I got it. And then what about her figurehead boyfriend?
Why do you say figurehead? Are we gonna be messy tonight?
If you ask me, but no, I won't get into it.
All right. I just thought that was cool. I wanted
Image,
to,
image is everything in Hollywood.
yeah, I just wanted to share that.
I didn't
So
appreciate it.
you what?
I did not appreciate it.
Oh, what is that?
What is what?
What did you just clickily clack?
I think that's somebody chomping on a
Oh,
bone.
I just want to make sure it wasn't your toy.
Now, I don't have toys. I have tools.
Well, you know I call that a toy, that particular thing.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Uh,
So let's get into it.
Doing incredibly for your country.
President of El Salvador visited the White House today. And of course, they were talking about the illegal migrant crisis.
yeah, and one of them is a tranny, and the other one is an allegedly a crook. So the Supreme Court on a 5-4 with 6-3 thing ordered him to facilitate the return of the individuals in question so they could get due process. And he facilitated, and he says, I can't order them back. They're not in my country. And the president of that country he met with, that he was facilitating with, said, hey, we have a legal system. I can't undo the legal system. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want our criminals walking around in our streets loose. So he said, there's nothing I can do. Trump said, I did all I could do. I talked to the president of the country in question. So he can't do anything. So I facilitated.
Mhm.
So now what?
Well, I want to play this clip here because they are talking about that one particular guy that they're saying was well, the Democrats are saying was arrested by mistake. And
Yeah,
he's
I'm
already
arrested by mistake. He's been done wrong. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
So I want to play this clip here.
Well, I'm supposed to be not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's
I mean,
only
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You could release him inside of Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
And
Well,
by
they'd love
the
to
way,
have
this
the
is what the
criminal.
jackass Biden administration brought these folk in from, the murder capital of the world. And since they got rid of the people that were making it the murder capital of the world, that the Biden-Harris administration invited into the United States, put in 4- and 5-star restaurants, were giving free medical care to, they are a lot safer. So they don't want them back.
Yeah, let me finish playing it.
Okay.
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what
That's
the Supreme
true.
Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, actually, what happens is technically they got caught by the elastic border. See, in other words, the Democratic Party thing is they crashed the border. So now that they're here, okay, fine. They need that due process of law if they're charged with anything. So Trump's position, sort of trumps that one. He said they're not in the United States because the border is elastic. Just like if you enter the United States, you might cross the geographic boundary at the Atlantic Ocean and you fly inland further than 3 miles, 10 miles, 100 miles, you land at an airport, you have technically crossed the physical border, but the border is elastic. So you haven't crossed the border yet until you are okay to be inside. So what they have right now is the border's elastic. It's stretched. They tried to get through it. They didn't. They may have been here illegally for a few months, several months, a year, but now they've been apprehended. The border snapped back to its confines. So they haven't got in here to get due process yet. And if somebody inappropriately got scooped up in it, well, he has his remedies. He can do what he's done. And if he's not entitled to be locked up someplace where he got deported to, then that country, under diplomatic pressure, probably will let him go through the process of applying through an American embassy or consulate if there's no embassy in the nationality involved, and seeing if he can't get brought back.
What they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, you know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
CNN always, listen, that's their bread and butter, is to push back against everything Trump, right?
Crying Negro Network.
Right. And if they are not doing that, they don't get views. Like their main viewership is talking about Trump. They'll probably get more views if they talk positive about him. But I think,
well, Newsmax has exceeded their ratings for the last several months. And CNN is going back into the position it was in the late 1980s, when it was seriously going broke because it wasn't working until they had the Gulf War. And that was the only time they had news that was really 24/7. And they got revived by the Gulf War. And then once the war was over, or the fracas was over, they had no real purpose. So they started having a lot of talking heads just running their mouths off and speculating and gossiping. And that was supposed to keep the ratings sufficient to keep them open for business. Play.
Hi, girl.
Hey, girl. Okay. So what happens is they're right back in the same problem they were 30 some years ago, 35 years ago. They have no purpose. The news is propaganda and nobody wants to listen to it. Well, hardly enough people listen to it to get their ratings up, so it's really worth commercial sponsorship. So maybe they'll just fade away and we will get replacements and get the FCC licenses reissued to somebody who will use the airways for more objective news reporting instead of for propaganda.
Well, I want to say this about the president of El Salvador. I'm glad that he's working with the president here in the United States, because it benefits him a lot more. It benefits him as well.
Yeah.
His country can be safer. Tourism, you could broker a deal with the United States as far as tourism, and he sees that. He sees what are the economic benefits of me working with President Trump.
And that's what diplomacy is about. And the Constitution makes the president the chief diplomat, who has the authority to make treaties, though if the treaties are to be effectuated, they have to be ratified by the Senate. But the treaties that the U.S. president makes, if they get ratified by the Senate, are part of the supreme law of the United States. That's Article 6. The three categories are the Constitution, and of course the amendments to change the Constitution, you have the situation where you have those particular type of laws that effectuate the Constitution. In other words, they're not administrative, but they
Why
carry
is she
out.
trying to bite you?
He's been playful all day. Back, back, back.
Throw a toy somewhere so she could go
He's
run.
got a whole rug full of toys over there. Go play. Back, back, go. So anyway, the third category in the supreme law of the land, outside of the Constitution itself, laws that have been designed to carry out the Constitution, they are ratified treaties. By the way, that was part of Too Fast and Too Furious that the Obama administration was trying to carry off. They wanted to set up a treaty with Mexico to get around the Second Amendment dealing with the right to keep and bear arms, so they could have, for the first time in American history, the novel approach of trying to defeat an amendment by using the treaty process, because the treaty, by the definition in the Constitution, is put on the same law as the level as the Constitution itself. It's a novel thing, but they got caught. It didn't go down.
Give me 1 second. My dog wanted to come up.
The evening is going to the dogs.
Oh no, he's right here. He wanted to come in the room. Hi, baby. So, okay. Moving on to this. But I don't need to share it. But the Pennsylvania arson suspect, Cody Belmar, was out on bail when he allegedly firebombed Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion as he pulls faces. Yeah, which is crazy.
Identify for the public what the party is of the governor in question.
Democrat. So he was making these crazy faces as he was arrested, being booked coming into the police station.
Well, the Democrats like crazy people. I suppose he's trying to appeal to them. What was he out on bond for?
Let me see here. The former mechanic, who said to now be jobless, penniless, and live with his parents, was free after making bail in 2023. Simply assault charge. Court.
Oh, okay.
Simple assault charge. Yeah.
See, that's an example of dumbing down the law. Historically, there have been two separate offenses: assault and battery. A battery is an unpermitted touching not done in the sense of pleasantry. What do you mean by sense of pleasantry? Come up, slap somebody on the back. Hey, Al, what's going on? Oh, I'm sorry, man. I mistook you for a friend of mine named Al. See, that's unpermitted touching, but it's in the sense of pleasantry. All right. So that's not a crime. An unpermitted touching is a battery. An assault is causing a person to be apprehensive, not fearful, but apprehensive that an unpermitted touching will occur. So the dummies that took over the state legislative bodies about 25, 30 years ago didn't understand these technical things, and they kind of merged them into assaults, which has caused a lot of confusion in the law.
Well, it says he was accused of stomping on his 10-year-old son broken leg and battering his wife. What?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh boy. Can you hear me? maybe you should go out and come back in. He'll be back. Usually when somebody calls him, it knocks the sound off. And then he has to go out and come back in. So he should be back up shortly. Guys, please share this video on all your social media outlets. Hit the like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Comment in the comment section. And if you would like to donate, please do so via Super Chat.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes.
Here.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. Yeah,
Now,
so
go ahead.
no,
I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me. I was just
no,
gonna.
I could hear you before, but you couldn't hear me. So when somebody calls you, it knocks the audio out to where you can't hear me, but we could still hear you.
Well, yeah, if I can explain why that's an important distinction that they have just thrown into the garbage bin. It's like if somebody hits you, obviously that's a battery, all right? An assault is like you may.
What happened? You went out again. What happened? Judge, we can't see you or hear you. Dana, get him a work phone. I mean, I've tried. I've tried. We can't see or hear you. Give us a second, guys. And I don't know. I have to ask him if his iPad is working. It should be. Y'all must no, we did not talk about Karmelo yet. We're about to talk about him in 5 minutes. So Karmelo Anthony, we'll be talking about him in 5 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing. All right, he's going to come back in. So yeah, so I just wanted to so when we start the show, we talk about little stories and then we get to the main topic. There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Now,
So anyway, what was you saying about the guy who burned down Pennsylvania
I'm
governors?
talking about they charged him with assault. I'm saying that the whole thing about assault versus assault and battery is an abomination right now because what they've done to wreck the law. It's been that way for 1,000 years, but 30 years ago, I guess the general typical legislative body was too ignorant of the laws that they passed and the significance, so they just dropped the battery and made it assault. An assault is making a person apprehensive that they're going to be struck. Now, you don't have to be fearful, and they added fearful. So were you in fear that no? The guy is 245 pounds. He's an all-pro linebacker, 5 years running. He can bench 300 pounds with ease. No, he's not in fear that an 80-year-old lady was about to strike him, but he was apprehensive. In other words, he anticipated with trepidation that he was going to be battered or struck. So an 85-year-old, 95-pound, frail old lady draws back her hand to slap him. He is apprehensive that a battery is going to be occurred. To put somebody in that position, the 85-year-old woman is guilty of a crime. Of course, you see, but that's too sophisticated for the average legislative bozo to understand. So he switched it to assault, and now they got rid of one vital element in the process.
Talking about the simple assault charge, but in this case,
charged with assault,
right? But in this case, with the arson, he turned himself in and admitted to. Who says no sound? he turned himself in and admitted to burning down the governor's mansion. So, and that's what they get for catch and release.
So did he, since he's running his mouth off and doing whatever he's doing, did he say why he did it?
What'd you say?
Did he continue to run his mouth off and say why he did it, or did he act like he had ever heard of the Fifth Amendment and keep his mouth shut?
Um, he turned himself in. He didn't.
But did he say why he did
No,
it?
I didn't. I haven't. I went out of that article. I didn't even finish reading it. So,
Yeah, so in other words, we don't know. All right.
I mean, but do we even care? Because I look at it. Listen, I think I brought it up for the purpose of these blue states. When you want to have these lenient laws, catch and release, for whatever reason, shit like this happens. And then I did hear some of the media people saying, well, the governor is Jewish and maybe it was being anti-Semitism. I doubt it. I don't know. I don't think so. But
Maybe it had to do with the Democratic Party having trying to incite the country to violence over the last 7 years.
maybe.
Maybe that's got something to do with it. They were promoting the riots in the various cities, courtesy of BLM and dead George Floyd. So maybe that took, Jasmine Crockett and Maxine Wastewater. They are doing, well, Maxine Waters, they're doing what they do, talking about break the windows out of anybody with a Trump sticker, scratch, key their car, burn them, that kind of thing. Maybe people are listening and see when you incite the public like that and you try to normalize it, it comes back and bites you, because the other side may have its crew of bozos and they say, okay, my blue bozo friends over here are doing it. I might as well be a red bozo. So you promote disorder. It's a very bad process to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, let's get into the main topic
And
here.
by the way, research it. When's the last time somebody tried to burn down a governor's mansion?
Did that ever happen?
It's kind of unique in American history. So I guess it is news. And all of this country's 236-year history, how many times has anybody outside of active war burnt down or tried to burn down a governor's mansion?
Yeah. I mean, the White House maybe, but
Nobody tried to burn the White House down. It used to be great.
well, the Britons? Didn't the Britons?
Yeah, that was War of 1812. I said outside of an active war, but
Oh, outside of active war.
historical mansions. So it used to be gray, by the way. In the Smithsonian, they've got an exhibit, a chunk of wood removed from the old White House walls, and the paint's about this thick on there. And at the bottom levels next to the wood, it's gray because they painted the place gray. It was not the White House initially.
All right. Well, let's get into Carmelo Anthony. You did a great job last week breaking down, the self-defense. And of course, we still don't have all the evidence. The police or the DA office have not released any more evidence, but you were able to give good legal analysts to
Analysis of what?
analysis to what we have known so far, and just the whole terminology of self-defense, right? And
Yeah, and by the way, it's looking, the more that comes out, the more it's looking less and less like a proper self-defense case, and more like a matter where there was premeditation that was involved to set this up. So, yeah, it's not looking good, but people are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. and we have yet to get the indictment process. You want me to jump into what's supposed to happen next, since
Well,
can't
yeah,
check it?
so let me just set it up real quick. And I do want to share this here. So Carmelo Anthony, who is 17 years old, he's accused of stabbing another high school student at a track meet last week. He was released Monday today after his bond was significantly lowered. He Anthony was released from Collin County Jail at 4:20 p.m. and put on house arrest with an ankle monitor after an 8-hour-long hearing at the county courthouse in McKinney on Monday morning. State District Judge Angela Tucker lowered Anthony's bond from $1 million to $250,000. Anthony,
250,000.
yes, 250,000. Sorry. And he has been charged with murder since April the 2nd. And
What degree?
Hmm?
What degree?
It doesn't say. It just says,
Of course, the typical modern news media wouldn't think that that's important, but it is.
yes, it is. So while under house arrest, Tucker said Anthony will only be permitted to leave home with her permission, namely trips to his attorney's office and meetings in court, and will need to be with an adult at all times. He is also not to contact the McCaff family, including on social media. Factors considered in court on Monday included Anthony's age, lack of criminal history, and ties to the community, including several family members, close friends, and a football coach and a manager from one of his part-time jobs. He showed up to the hearing. Who
I
showed up?
always found that the greater the extent of the defendant's youth, the more unreliable they are about showing up. The older they are, the more reliable they're likely to be about returning until the matter is disposed of. So I don't know what that had to do with why the bond was lowered, but that's not my call right now. I'm just making an observation. But as I said before, the bond heretofore set was excessive. 250,000 is more reasonable. But the more I hear about it, worse it looks. So we'll see what happens. And as I have observed on many occasions, what you hear in the press or through the press or gets revealed by the press, particularly these days, is not very reliable compared to what you hear on a witness stand.
Mhm.
But it looks like, one, why is he carrying a knife to a track meet when he's a participant in the meet? Two, why is he under a tent shelter on the wrong team side? Why is he where somebody else is on that team that he has a prior animosity with? Why is he on social media in the preceding week boasting or advertising what he's going to do in retaliation? And then he may get beat up, but you have people saying, well, the disparate size. Well, that doesn't matter. It's a young athlete, and he did play football, and he's going to run into linemen if he's playing football who are as big as the deceased, if not bigger. So that doesn't wash when you get to talking about disparate treatment.
Well, there have been more to it with the story, but I want to play this clip of DA Greg Willis. That's the DA's whose case this is whose DA's office is going to be handling this case. So this is the DA talking after the bond hearing.
Good morning, everybody. There's not much I can say, but the judge. All right.
Can you come this way?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine, right there.
All right, there's not much I can say. The judge has made the call, and so what's important is what's next. Frisco PD will be finishing up their investigation. They will submit the case to my office. We will review it and ultimately present it to a grand jury. And so that's what's next. That's really much, it's pretty much all I can say right now. We do our speaking in, as far as the facts go in the courtroom. Many of you were in there, so you understand what was said. But this is a terrible tragedy for our entire, not just Frisco, but Collin County community. One family has suffered a permanent loss. It's the most unnatural thing for a parent to lose their child. It's permanent, it's profound, it's certainly premature, and it's the hardest thing that I think a human being can go through is to lose their child. The Anthony family has had a different kind of loss, but a loss nonetheless. But the judge has made her call, and we look forward to continuing the process and looking forward to reviewing all the facts of the case that Frisco PD is coming up with and present it to a grand jury. What we're concerned about as prosecutors is justice, truth, and accountability. And so we will go where the facts lead us. Thank you so much.
Could you speak about the security and the vitriol and just the safety even for the judge and your officer?
Ladies over 100.
Well, this has definitely rocked our entire community. And so it has struck a nerve in the community, and it's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this. So that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads. Thank you so much.
And what is your guidance for those that don't know? Thank you.
So I want to add this for a little bit of context here, right? Karmelo Anthony father, he is not on camera, but he was briefly interviewed by the New York Post. And he says, everyone has already made their assumptions about my son, but he's not what they're making him out to be. He's a good kid. He works 2 jobs. He's an A student, has a 3.7 GPA. The elderly Anthony insisted his son didn't instigate the tragic brawl over a seat at the track stadium in Frisco, Texas, where the boys' school had met for a track meet. He was not the aggressor. He was not the one who started it. He is charged. Karmelo is charged with first-degree murder. Anthony said his son's action was a heat of the moment mistake that has brought tragedy to both families. Quote, I feel bad for the other parents and family, and words can't explain how both families have been affected by this tragedy, end quote. So it says the senior, Karmelo, he was a senior at Centennial High School, was allegedly told he was sitting in the wrong seat before he drew a knife and launched his attack, the father of the victim said. Karmelo allegedly stabbed Austin McCaff in the chest as his victim, identical twin brother, watched in horror. And that's when
problem is what he doing with the knife at the school. It's got to be a knife long enough to penetrate through the rib structure into the thoracic cavity to do something to the heart lung situation there if you're going to take somebody out. The other thing is if we're talking about basically just unarmed physical force, how anyone justifies stabbing someone in the chest. So what we're talking about, the father talked about, is passion, and that would, if the jury went for that, brings it down to second-degree murder or manslaughter. The state of Texas may call that something else, but essentially that would be what is at common law. Second degree murder is the commission of a homicide in the heat of passion induced by provocation that caused the defendant to act in an irrational fashion. Manslaughter is the commission of a homicide upon passion induced by provocation that would cause an ordinary and reasonable person to act irrationally. And there is the difference, that reasonable person, ordinary person versus the defendant himself with his peculiarities and individual nature. In other words, if you can convince a jury that under the circumstances that exist in this case, that they would likely act in an irrational fashion and commit the homicide, then you've got a good manslaughter chance here. If you show that the defendant, through his particular circumstances, which the jury might not identify with but might recognize, then you've got a second degree murder case. But here, from what I've heard on the facts, assuming there's any validity to them, that's probable cause to charge first degree murder, where the homicide was committed with supposed, well, in a lot of states, it would be called premeditation. In other words, you thought about it and you planned it out.
So, but that's the thing. What, in what regard would it have been planned out? Because they didn't know each other.
Well, then that's contrary to what's going on, because the reports I've been seeing are that they had had a prior situation. So that would make
That's what I'm saying with, see, the police and the DA office have not released any official evidence, right? So though that what you just,
they
that
have
was
to
all
make out.
speculation. Because well, let me just say this, because what's coming out now is they did not know each other prior to being under the tent. And when he went under the tent, because it was raining, so he went under there for shelter, that's when Austin said, get out of here, basically. Don't sit under this tent. And that's when Austin,
Well, if he said that, there may be some basis to it. In other words, that belonged to that team, not the other one. So you don't go to this high school, you need to leave. So if it went from there, fine, but he still got the problem with having the knife.
Mhm. Okay.
Why would he perceive that he needed protection at a track meet?
I don't know.
There you go.
Okay, so
Now, see, the other thing is if he alleges self-defense, the state's going to have to prove that he did not act in self-defense in a lot of places. Some states, self-defense becomes an affirmative defense. You have to prove that to the jury and put on proof. You don't necessarily have to take the stand, but you have to raise the issue. And if the state removes it, you get caught up with explain yourself. How do you claim self-defense on this? In other words, the assault thing, putting a person in a state of apprehension that an unpermitted touching is going to occur. In this case, before you're entitled to use deadly force against another human, you have to have a reasonable anticipation that deadly force is going to be used against you, such that you would be in jeopardy of suffering death or serious bodily injury or serious bodily harm or great injury, etc., depending upon how the state defines it.
all right, let me play this clip.
Are you playing it?
You don't hear it?
No, I don't hear anything except silence.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Let me reshare it. Sorry. You waited a long time to tell me.
Oh, well, I thought you were.
Metcalf at a Frisco
released from the Collin County
Can you hear that?
I heard that, yes.
jail after posting bond. A judge Karmelo Anthony has been released from the Collin County jail after posting bond. A judge reduced his bond this morning from $1 million to $250,000. He's facing a murder charge after police say he stabbed another teenager, Austin Metcalf, while at a track meet at a Frisco high school. Stephen Dial is in McKinney with more. Stephen.
Karmelo Anthony left the Collin County jail in a suit but had nothing to say to the reporters before he got into that vehicle. The district court judge says that she looked at all the factors in this case, him not having a criminal history, and that led to her making her decision to reduce his bond. 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony was silent after bonding out of the Collin County jail and being placed on house arrest.
How is this self-defense?
2 days after the family of Austin Metcalf buried their son, they were at the Collin County courthouse for a bond reduction hearing Monday. Karmelo Anthony is accused of stabbing and killing Metcalf at a Frisco track meet earlier this month. The case has quickly become national news, drawing a lot of attention, resulting in threats and increased security at the courthouse.
Threats and, talk of race war and all kinds of insanity isn't good for, obviously, the Anthony family. It's not good for the Metcalf family.
Cameras were not allowed inside the courtroom, but we did capture the Anthony family arriving. His father, Andrew, testified in the hearing. District Court Judge Angela Tucker said that she's never gotten this volume of calls and had to have this level of security in the courtroom in her 13 years on the bench. Court documents say Anthony stabbed Metcalf during a fight. When an officer arrived, court documents say Anthony told the officer, "I was protecting myself." Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis spoke after the hearing.
The judge has made the call, and so what's important is what's next. And it's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads.
Anthony's father testified he's taking a leave from work because of the incident, and his wife is a stay-at-home mother with 3 other children. During the hearing, the prosecution brought up the fact that more than $400,000 have been raised for the Anthony family, saying a reduction is not needed because they have the funds. A big question in this case will be, why did Anthony bring a weapon to a high school stadium? It's a question that was asked of his attorney.
That's an understandable question, but it's not something that, frankly, we're prepared to even go into.
Now, in the opening statement to the media from that interview that you just heard, he led with talking about self-defense. Again, the court documents mention self-defense. We'll have to wait and see how that defense will be made in court when things pan out. Now, according to the judge, the terms of the bond are house arrest and ankle monitor. She told him to stay off social media, and he has to personally call her bailiff every Friday morning, not his parents, but him. And there's a list of other things that is set, and if he violates that, he'll return to the Collin County jail.
You should have put an ankle bracelet on him.
They did.
Okay. The thing here is this. He's the one that shot his mouth off and said, "I defended myself." But you see, that's the lay idea of, I had a right to do that. No, you don't. You have a right to fist fights. I mean, if all you're going to take is a physical beating that is not going to be life-threatening, even if you're going to take that beating, you don't have any justification for using deadly force to resist it. It's just you got your butt beat, plain and simple. But if all you're facing is getting your behind whipped, you can't kill somebody under those circumstances, because it must be something that causes a reasonable belief that you are in danger of suffering death. or serious bodily injury, which is not a split lip, black eye, or bruises. It has to be a life-threatening injury.
Mhm.
And that's not likely to happen between 17-year-olds in an unarmed fist fight. Not without some particular circumstances. Actually, it looks worse now that you tell me they were not acquainted with each other, because he, unlike the previous tales, would have no reason to think this particular individual was going to do him harm. And all that's going on is, by the way, evicting somebody in a trespass situation. And believe me, under the law, when somebody's trespassing, you can lay hands on them to eject them.
Well, he wasn't trespassing.
Well, yes, he was in this tent. I saw the video for the tent, and
Yeah, but you can't.
it's on the other team.
But no. When I say he wasn't trespassing, it's not against the law, or it's not against any type of policy that you can't go under another school tent.
Well, yeah, but
Let me finish. Let me just finish.
That's not what it's about.
Let me finish. Can I finish,
Go
please?
ahead.
He wasn't trespassing because there's no policy or prohibiting you from doing that, one, and then two, it was raining, so you dash under for shelter. So
So
that's
what? You get wet otherwise. But you see, it is trespassing if somebody tells you. You do not have license nor invitation to be up under here. This is reserved for people in a certain category. You have to leave. You've been advised that you no longer have an invitation or entitlement to be there. You have to leave. If you don't, you're in a condition of trespass.
okay.
It
Wait,
doesn't have
slow
to be
down for a
any law.
second, Judge, please slow down for a second. If that's the case, Austin McCaff did not have a right to tell him that, because he was not the authority. He was not a school official. He didn't pay for that tent to be there. He wasn't a sponsor. So
He doesn't have to be.
he didn't have the authority to do that.
He could have had it designated. When I went to
He
school,
was not.
when I went to school, they had hallway monitors, and hallway monitors were students. And we could say, you need to show a pass if you're out here, otherwise you need.
He wasn't a monitor.
He doesn't know that. The actor who is charged says he told me I had to leave. He has to show that, or
Because
have
he was
from
a
the
school
proof.
rival.
It doesn't, yeah. So what is he
But
all
that's not
along?
trespassing.
Listen to
It's
me.
not trespassing.
Listen to me. It is, because when somebody tells you you should not be in here, you have no business in here, you'll have to leave. Now,
So then
you
why didn't
have
you
to listen. If he's going to rely on the whole line of logic that he's got, he's going to have to lay it out. I knew he had no authority. How does he know that? He can't show that.
He was a
And
student.
have to get up. He can't show it. And the other person is simply claiming it on behalf of the school. In other words, if you're a student and a trespasser walks through the front door of the public school, but they're not a student, but they're at student age, the students, anybody else can inquire and say, why are you in here?
Okay, they can inquire, but you
And they
cannot
say
wait.
if-
But you cannot direct or put hands.
Yes, you
No,
can.
you cannot.
And look, I
That's
dealt
why you
with
have
that. Look, many a time.
Let me say something here.
Excuse me.
That
You
is
don't
why
have
you have
anything to say.
security. Yes, I do. That is why you have security. That's why
That is not why you have
that
security.
is why you have
Security is your
you
business.
as a student.
Security is acting as your agency or your agent. All of this
You
stuff
do
comes in
not have
because
authority as a student
all of
to
this
put
stuff
hands on
comes.
somebody.
All of this stuff comes in, but no, you don't. That's just something that somebody has on as a superfluous requirement. It's dangerous, so you have security. That does not deprive anybody of the authority to demand the person explain why they are there if they themselves have a legal status or a permitted status
What are you
or
talking about? I don't
invitee, or in other words, if you're in some place and you have the license or the invitation to be there, You may inquire of a stranger what they are doing there. And you see, one thing that people made a big mistake on, and they recently, big mistakes, is that they think that, so what if I'm trespassing? He doesn't have the authority to move me. He has to call the police. A person who is announcing trespass, if he does so, and he is not out of line doing it, and somebody violates the trespass, he may do it at his own peril, but he can lay hands on somebody and eject them. And the point is,
He can.
you can. In other words, you can toss the person out through the door, out through the portal, out into the streets, lay hands on them and eject them, shove them, grab them, yank them, remove them. You
No,
see,
he
if
can't.
somebody is trespassing, that is
That's
not,
not, but he was not trespassing.
he is. He
How,
had,
how do you know he's
in other words,
trespassing?
let's take your line. We have all of these other things because of security measures and because of the fact that there may be a fight or violence that occurs. That's on the upswing. So you have a student in the wrong place. He's been advised this is some area that is reserved for school A. You belong to school B. When I went to high school, we couldn't have night football games in the Southern League in Los Angeles because there were so many fights and so much disorder. So we had a concern with public safety. You did not have members of the opposite team going over to the other side. And this is 60 years ago, more than 60 years ago. So it ain't nothing new. And it just didn't happen because you wanted to keep down the violence. So you have one student coming over to the other side. I want to get in out of the rain. Well, maybe the other kid was wrong. Maybe he laid hands upon him, but no how, no way does he exercising this apparent authority, this laying upon of hands, or even battering him by doing an unpermitted touching. No how, no way does that justify somebody using deadly force on him.
So let me talk.
So he ran his mouth off and said, I was defending myself. Now, when he makes,
So wait, Judge,
hold on, let me finish. The law is kind of a slam dunk. It's been the law for the last 1,000 years. So, or developing to where it is now for the last 1,000 years, and for the last 100 or so, it's been consistent. If somebody lays hands on you, you may resist. If you use deadly force against them and all they did was to lay hands on you, you better good and damn well be able to prove sufficient disparate force that you are likely to be killed or suffer life-threatening injury. Now, the problem is this kid ran his mouth off and said, I was defending myself. So the defense is going to have to show, maybe, or the prosecution is going to have to show that it did not have a situation where this kid was in danger of suffering death or life-threatening injury. All right? And he's not going to be able to do that. He stabbed the boy in the chest. He shot his mouth off before they had a chance to question him. It's called a spontaneous utterance, which is admissible. And he said, I was defending myself. At that point, he sets the stage. They, the prosecution being they, can use that statement in evidence against the defendant. Now the defendant has to claim self-defense, and the question becomes, what about the situation caused him to have a reasonable belief that he was going to suffer death or serious bodily injury, which translated comes into life-threatening injuries? So what about that situation caused him to have that development? And since he did not have that, he can't show that unless he's going to show some particular circumstances, and it's not going to wash, because if he tries to introduce through people his weight without him testifying, it's going to be, okay, so what? Are you or are you not aware that the defendant played football? Okay, You can call in a coach, several coaches. Do you have any 130, 135, 140-pound football players? Yes, I do. What do the linemen on your team weigh? So and so and so and so. What is the line average for the front four, front five in a high school situation? I went to a place, Southern League. They averaged out 240, 250.
I want to say something.
Where does he come into it?
I want to say something.
Go ahead.
You talk long enough. Now let me introduce.
Well, it's long enough. It might be.
Let me talk without you interrupting me, because you said a couple of things in there, which is pure speculation, because you're throwing in now trespassing. Now that is, I asked you not to interrupt me. That's not trespassing. And you use the example of when you was in high school. That was 60 goddamn years ago.
And the law is exactly the same.
Interrupting me, please. That is you inserted your own personal opinion.
Of course, that's what you do.
Why are you constantly interrupting me? Let me finish. You gave an example when you were in high school that your high school had security or violence issue with another high school. That's your situation. You cannot use that in this, because there was no pretense of any type of violence or tension between the two schools. There was open tents on bleachers. So there was no such thing as trespassing in none of those policies. If you hopped under somebody's tent real quick because it was raining, that's not trespassing. It is open space. Nobody owns that stadium, not the school of Austin McClav or Karmelo Anthony. So trespassing is not a goddamn issue. That's not even relevant, because he was not trespassing. I get your analogy. You walked in another school's place, but that wasn't you walked under another school tent, and that wasn't your school. And the two guys, or the one guy, said, get from over here, because this is not your team, this is not your school, and we don't want you here. And that's when the incident apparently ensued. But you can't throw trespassing in there, because it wasn't trespassing.
Yes, it was. But technically,
and I asked you to stop interrupting. I didn't interrupt you. There's no trespassing, because that was not their property. That was not their property. Trespassing is when you trespassing against someone's property. That was not Austin McCaff School's property. So it was just a tent. That was a majority of people that was running under that school was sitting under that tent. He only went there not to just chill out, just for shelter for a quick minute and then leave. But it was an altercation that took place. You're now throwing in trespassing. Maybe the DA would try to throw that in. But
look, that's a spurious.
No, and I'm not finished. And I'm not
saying that that's spurious, because you're not even on. You're way out of your league on this.
I'm not way out of my league. You are,
and I'm way out of your league. Look. Okay. Analogy again.
Finish. No. I'm about to finish, and then you could go. I'm not out of my league, because I'm just replying to your own personal opinion. I'm not replying to
not personal opinion.
Personal when you threw in trespassing. That's personal. You personally think that it was trespassing, and I'm saying that it's not. It can't be, because it wasn't their property for anybody to trespass on.
Okay, now let me defeat that to show you what you're going astray from. Let's supposing that this came to the team bench. The teams don't own those benches unless the game was being played at their particular high school, their venue. That bench would then be assigned to the school. But even if it was in a public stadium, they are assigned that bench. So let's supposing the football team or the track team is sitting out on the bench with the coach standing in front of them, the water boys at each end, the trainers with the towels and stuff in case there's an emergency, and four guys from the opposing team walk across the field and decide to sit down. Do you mean they're supposed to have to call the police to say, you can't be here interfering with our team, where you hear the team instructions, where you're sitting this near to the action? Leave, go back on the other side of the field. See, they can say that. And when they tell somebody that, that sets up a condition of trespass because that other athlete, that student from the other school, has no business trying to intrude themselves sitting in the midst of the other team. Now, see, that's what comes in, and if you have a smart DA, they'll bring that up. And then
You
the
could bring
judge is not going to contradict that
wait, wait,
charge the law.
but that DA could definitely bring that up. But that doesn't
Yes,
mean he's
and
going to
that's what
hold.
the situation is. What is likely to happen is the DA is going to say, at the worst, what this dead boy did was announce that the defendant was trespassing and ask him to leave. And
Okay.
at that point, I don't care whether he laid hands on him or not, there was no justification, according to the prosecution side, to deal with moving it to deadly force and stabbing this guy in the center or in the chest area, the thorax, with a knife. Now, he said I was defending myself from what? A butt whipping. Well, you can't kill somebody because you got your butt beat.
If the DA was to say that Carmelo Anthony was trespassing, and you sit up here and say, I'm out of my league, as a DA to even say that, and that would be way.
The DA is likely to say that because he was on the wrong
I'm not saying
side
he
of the
of
field.
course he's going to say it. And you know what? I hope the DA do say he was trespassing, because he's going to sound stupid.
He's not
He's
going to sound
very
stupid
elementary.
because
Wait, let me tell you why he's going to sound silly. He's going to sound silly because it's a high school track meet. It start pouring down raining and people are just running under for shelter. You know how many times I've been to high school events where it rains and then you all just huddle under whatever shelter? So it's people from different teams huddling together until the rain it dissolves and then you go back to your own team place.
It's not that big
You
a
know what?
shelter.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know what, Judge? You're right. It was trespassing. And I hope that DA brings up trespassing.
And he will.
Yes, he will. Yes,
You see, and first off, this is not a large tent structure. What is being depicted is a very small awning shelter that probably could have gotten a table under it and 6 chairs. Now, that's how small it is. So here you have somebody from the opposite team going to take up that much space from the shelter. Okay, fine. So nobody is entitled to tell him to leave. And if they tell him to leave, they have to suffer his presence.
You know what? I hope that DA Greg Willis.
Yeah, well, they likely will. And then what's going to go on is, okay.
I hope somebody send him this clip, because I really do want him to bring up trespassing.
Let me tell you how it's going to develop.
Okay.
What's going to develop is some hot-headed kid that didn't have the personal courage and bravery to go have a fight, had a knife, and he was on the wrong side. And he got angry because somebody asked him to step in the rain because this awning was not set up for the opposing team. If they wanted someplace to shelter, their team could have set it up. So when he's asked to leave, there's a hands laid on. Even if the other kid who's dead was wrong for doing it, even if he committed an assault or an assault and battery, the problem is that the defendant ran his mouth off when he didn't have to, with a Fifth Amendment framework that he could have stuck himself into and prospered. He said, I was defending myself. That will be used in evidence. Defending yourself against what? Well, I was there and they told me to leave. So they're telling you you're trespassing on their territory. Okay, fine. So what happens? Does he want to take the stand and let this come out? He'll take the stand and testify if he wants to. He has no prior record, so there are no prior bad acts they can bring up. So the question becomes, all right, you want to testify. Explain why you stabbed him in the chest with a knife instead of hitting him with your fist.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't explain that because you admitted that you used deadly force. I was protecting myself.
So let me add
You
this.
can't use
Let
deadly
me ask
force
you a question.
against in those
Let
circumstances.
me ask you a question. So we're past the trespassing, and I do want the DA to bring up trespassing. I really do.
It will.
Okay, sure. And I want him to.
And by the way, the judge is going to recite the law to the jury if that comes up and define what trespassing is.
Yeah. Okay. So
Now,
this
when
what-
they
I
do that,
wait, I have
it's not going to be open to speculation.
I have a question. I have a question which has nothing to do with the trespassing. Um, so like you said, he admitted to stabbing him. Now, he did say after he admitted to doing it to the cops, and then next sentence he said to the cops, "Is he okay?" Can't the defense also bring into it that it was not intentional? He did not.
No, that's a dodge because it's self-serving. He can say, "All right, is he okay?" Doesn't make any difference. You just stabbed him in the chest. Okay, you shoot somebody without justification, and they die from the gunshot, and you come up, "Is he okay?" Well, it's too late now, and the situation
No, no, no.
supposed.
But no. What I'm saying is by him saying it's no alleged I did it, and then turn around saying he said self-defense, and then he said, well, is he okay? So wouldn't can't the defense say he did not intend to kill him? He did not, his intentions was not to come to the meet
That's not the
and
way the
stab
law
him.
works.
No, I'm asking a question. Isn't the defense going to have to prove that it was not in his intentions were not to kill him?
The intention was to stab. What's the natural consequences of a stab wound?
That doesn't mean kill.
Ah, that's likely. Okay, let's put it this way. Let's suppose that instead of a knife, that he had brought a gun and he shot him in the chest saying, "I was defending myself."
It's self-defense. That's what that would be part of his self-defense.
Yeah,
So
I know, but
that's what I'm saying.
think
His
about it.
intention. This is the question I'm asking you, because the defense is going to use self-defense. Part of that self-defense is saying he did not intend to kill him.
That's not the point. You intend the consequences of your actions. You can't get into a person's mind. You have to look at their actions. Did you stab the person? Did you pull the trigger?
So what is manslaughter?
Manslaughter is the intentional commission of a homicide under provocation sufficient to cause an ordinary person to act in an irrational fashion. So you might have people on the jury who have grown up like me or other people in healthier parts of the country, been in fist fights. And the question is all right, every fist fight you've been in your life that you lost, do you think that entitled you to pull out a knife and stab the person who whipped you in the chest? No, it doesn't. You win some, you lose some. Ain't nobody around won every fight they were in. So are you saying anytime there's a fist fight, that if somebody's losing, they get to pull out a knife and kill the person?
Okay, so let me do a little bit of clarity here for the different levels of charges. So break it down. First
degree murder is premeditation and intention to do something. A homicide. Second degree murder, generally it's in the heat of passion. It's sufficient to cause the defendant, maybe nobody else, to act irrationally. Manslaughter is the commission of a homicide based on provocation that would cause an ordinary and reasonable person to act in that. Then you have reckless homicide. Then you have criminally negligent homicide. Now, the problem is if you're
I
smart.
don't need you to give the definition.
No, I know, but here's the thing. The smart DA would say if you accept the defense proposition, that means that anytime anybody ever won a fist fight, the opponent would be entitled to stab them in the chest with a knife.
So voluntary manslaughter is killing someone in a moment of passion or anger, often in response to provocation.
Yeah, the provocation will be defined with the jury instructions as sufficient.
Involuntary manslaughter, killing someone by accident or through
Yeah, accident. That's also criminally negligent, reckless homicide, whatever. It depends on the state. They
So,
various degrees. New York tends to call them murder 1, 2, 3, and 4, and all the way down.
so with Carmelo Anthony, because the defense is going to be used in self-defense, they're probably going to be asking for a manslaughter charge.
That's automatic. Under circumstances like this, the judge would be on safer ground to charge all lesser included offenses.
Mm-hmm.
And the jury would start with the most serious one. If they acquitted him of that and they moved on, is he guilty of second-degree murder? Is he guilty of voluntary manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter? And go on down the list. And they might hang up. They might acquit him of first-degree murder and hang up on the lesser included second degree. They might hang up on manslaughter, voluntary or involuntary. I don't like to break it down to voluntary and involuntary because it gets into fine nuances that take a while to charge a jury about.
So
And but the point is,
wait, I want to read something real quick.
his mouth off and says, I did it. I was defending myself. Now, if he claims that he stabbed the guy to defend himself, then defense is going to have to show special justification for using deadly force to escalate a thing that was not involving deadly force.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he claims to be, I was a 130-pound woman, but he's not, because, by the way, the prosecution might try to select people that had been in the Marine Corps, the Army, and then say, do you remember when you dealt with pugil sticks in training in a boot camp? Did they always pick equal-sized individuals, or occasionally did they have even girls go up against big guys with the pugil sticks? Because you're getting your butt whipped, this is the most important factor. In any of the fist fights that people used to get into, and sometimes they still get into, if you lose the fight or you're losing it, does that entitle you to stab somebody in the chest because you're getting your butt whipped in a fight? No, it does not. And the question becomes the exact same, because don't think of it as a knife. Think of it as use of deadly force. Deadly force is also a pistol, an axe, or a sword. Under the circumstances, does it enable you, if you're losing this fist fight, to pick up a gun and shoot somebody in the dead center of his chest or any other part of his body with a 45 or a 9mm because you're getting your butt beat in a fist fight?
Let me answer that for a second. Because I may say yes under certain circumstances, because you asked the question, even though it could have been rhetorical. But what if it was a woman fighting a man?
That's disparate force, and that recognizes the fact that today's sociology doesn't want to deal with. There are inherent differences between men and women. There is a thing called human sexual dimorphism. Based on the sexuality, there are bone density situations, muscle density situations, various internal organs that are possessed by women, not possessed by men, that make women more delicate than men.
Okay.
There's no way around it.
So here's I'm asking you some questions. I'm throwing questions. So it is definitely a difference between men and women, but there's also a difference between body types between two males. If one is smaller,
That doesn't make any difference, because some of the most decorated war hero in American history was Audie Murphy. He was 5 feet 4 inches tall. And the real Audie Murphy wound up being a Western star. He played in various Westerns, 21 of them, and he died in a plane crash.
So
So
It
yeah,
says, so let me read this real quick. Examples of manslaughter: killing someone while defending yourself or others, killing someone while driving under the influence, killing someone in a car accident due to reckless driving, killing someone by negligently.
negligent. Damn, you got me so I can't say it.
Sorry, negligence.
Negligence.
Negligently, I don't know. Misidentifying them as an animal. So, I think Carmelo Anthony falls under one of these examples of manslaughter as opposed to murder.
I said manslaughter committed. It's if you get a full definition rather than that little clumsy abbreviated one. In common law, manslaughter was the taking of a life of another based on provocation. Uh, no, manslaughter is the taking of a life of another in the heat of passion based on provocation sufficient to cause an ordinary and reasonable person to act in an irrational fashion. Okay.
So, right. So, manslaughter versus murder. Manslaughter is less culpable than murder because it lacks the intent to kill. The line between manslaughter and murder isn't always clear.
That depends on the state and what the particular charges are. There are 50 states and then there are the feds. The feds have murder very seldom comes up in a federal court because there's no real federal murder case. Usually if the murder occurs, it's automatically going to be a state case unless perhaps it occurs during the commission of something the feds have primary jurisdiction over, like a bank robbery, which also is subject to state jurisdiction.
So it says the U.S. Department of Justice says that voluntary manslaughter can be punished by up to 10 years in prison, while involuntary manslaughter can be punished by up to 6 years in prison.
Yeah, that's what they do. In some states, like the one I presided over the courts in, it was 3 to 15 years. The presumptive sentence for a first offender person convicted of manslaughter, depending upon the background, is 3 to 6 years. There is a presumption, say in Tennessee, that if someone is a range one standard offender, as we call it, and they're convicted of manslaughter, they're suited for probation or even judicial diversion, where if they complete the probation, the period, the charges are dismissed and they have no criminal record. Now, that's what might happen, and that might wind up being a plea bargain. It may not, but the problem is this kid shot his mouth off and said, I was defending myself. In other words, he admitted to the act of stabbing. He may have acted in ignorance or uttered in ignorance when he said that. And there's no real problem with advisement of rights because it was a spontaneous utterance and it was not apparently in response to any question. He just blurted it out. So we will have that in the record. He admits to doing the act that caused the fatality. So was the act accidental? Was it recklessly done without the intention of delivering the blow, or was the blow intentional? That would take it to at least second-degree murder. Now, if the second-degree murder doesn't lie because of the circumstances and you get more elements of manslaughter, it reduces it. But the problem is the defendant took credit for the act that rendered the situation a fatal situation. He did the thing. He doesn't have to say, I intended to kill him. All that is necessary is that he did an act from which a logical person could reasonably infer that the consequences of that act would be death. You stab somebody in the chest, you're quite likely to kill them. So the issue of intent goes to, did you or did you not intend to stab this guy? And if you say I was defending myself, then a priori you're saying I intended to stab him. Now, that's where it comes in. 130-pound men fighting somebody bigger, whether you're talking about David taking on Goliath, or you're talking about somebody like Bruce Lee taking on a big, bulky somebody, even though Bruce Lee's stuff for the most part was fiction, though he did know his stuff. But you see, everybody does not have to be big, and some people are quicker. Now, a quick big man is always going to prevail over a quick little guy, assuming they knew the same thing. But that does not justify the little guy, unless you are at war or that kind of situation, to use deadly force because he's about to get a butt whipping. Just think about it. If that was a justification for using deadly force, how many kids would be dead on the playground in my generation, the generation before, and the generation after me?
But we're not in your generation.
I don't care whether you're in my
You
generation.
keep going
The
backwards.
law,
We're not even talking about my generation.
the law is the same. It's been the same going on 1,000 years. It doesn't change just because some people
wait,
get
are you
new
talking
ideas about what they're talking about.
Let me ask you this question. Are you talking about the law, or are you talking about kids of your
I'm
generation?
not the kids, forget the kids. We're talking about the law.
All right, let me play this clip of the DA speaking to Fox News.
Okay, let's hear what he's got to say.
Today, the judge dramatically reducing the bond for 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony from $1 million to $250,000 with the condition of house arrest. Fundraising for his defense currently stands above $400,000. My next guest was arguing against any reduction as the prosecutor of the case. It's Collin County, Texas District Attorney Greg Willis. Mr. District Attorney, thank you for being with us here today. Let me talk about your reaction first to the bond being set at $250,000 after the county, the district, asking for $1 million bond.
Well, good to be with you, Will. If I could just say at the outset that before we get into that, there's no greater loss than the loss of a child. I mean, we all know that. And that's what the Metcalf family is living through right now. And our hearts go out to them. And a community like ours, the people expect a serious response to a tragedy like this. And that's what we're trying to do, to deliver justice and to do our job in the right way. As far as the bond reduction goes, it's important for everyone to stay in their lane. And our lane was to argue that the judge should keep it at $1 million. The court decided to reduce it down to $250,000. And as you mentioned, put additional conditions on that, including house arrest and electronic monitoring.
Yeah, he will be on house arrest, as you mentioned, electronic monitoring. You mentioned the community. What is the reaction of the community in Collin County? I spend many of my nights in Collin County. My children play soccer in Collin County. I'm one county over from you, but what's the reaction up there to this entire ordeal?
Well, it's just been devastating. That we are a family-friendly place in Collin County. We have about 1.2 million people, and Frisco is probably the epicenter of parents being involved in their kids' lives and encouraging sports and academics and music and all sorts of extracurricular activities. And so it has really struck a nerve and devastated our entire community.
Mr. District Attorney, I know you can't talk to me about the specifics of the facts in the case, not yet, not until you've gone to a grand jury, not until you've officially filed charges. I would love to ask you, though, about some rumors that might exist out there and what you can confirm or deny. And I'm going to ask you about two things. First, because I'm familiar with the community and I hear a lot of conversation, is it that these two encountered each other for the first time that day at the track meet, or did they have any type of prior relationship, even if it was online, towards before what happened at the track meet?
Yeah, I don't resent you asking that. I would probably ask me too, but I won't be able to address those.
Okay. One more, though, and because I honestly don't know the line of where you can answer questions on evidence or not. So I ask you with curiosity, and we'll find out together, I guess, where that line is and what you can share with me. But obviously at an event with a bunch of kids present, we as Americans, everyone watching, has become very familiar with the idea that kids record things. Is there, to your knowledge, video evidence in this incident?
All I can say on that, Will, is that Frisco PD is collecting all available video, and they are going through all of that right now. And when they submit the case to our office, then we will see if there's any video of the actual act in question here.
Okay, last question. What's your timeline? When do you expect to go to a grand jury? When do you expect to see a case?
Well, the process is this. I mean, Frisco is wrapping up their investigation. And once they finalize that, they will submit it to my office. And my best prosecutors will review the facts and vet those to get it ready for a grand jury presentation. So until we get the case, it's kind of hard to give you a timeline. I would say what's typical in a situation like this, I would say the next few weeks to a month, maybe up to 6 weeks, we would probably get the case by then. And then however long it takes us to review the facts and get it ready for a grand jury presentation is what it would take. So it's not out of question that by the end of June that we could have the case to a grand jury, but that could vary depending on how long it takes Frisco to get the case to us. And as eager as we are to review it, we don't want to rush them. We want them to do the professional job that they're known for.
Okay, we'll be watching. District Attorney.
That was a temperate exposition. That was what you would expect from a decent DA.
It takes that long to get in front of a grand jury.
It does. See, figure this out. In certain kinds of homicide cases, you don't have an immediate suspect who's caught red-handed, so to speak, and who says in the heat of passion, he has a spontaneous utterance. He says, I was defending myself. So it might take that amount of time to develop all of the nuances and see what the witnesses have to say. And is there any extraneous evidence from somebody's video camera or whatever's going on? Now, yeah, it takes a while. Memphis, they messed up badly when they had the Tyree Nichols case here. They returned an indictment in the fastest fashion I've seen in 50 years, and they blew it on the charges. They missed out totally on murder in the perpetration of a felony. They charged the defendants with second-degree murder rather than first degree. So there were some factual allegations that have come to light that basically make a mockery of what was going on, but the new DA had been a law professor, not a criminal trial lawyer or a former prosecutor. So it's not unexpected when you have neophytes in charge of the process. This man sounds like he knows what he's doing. But again, I caution everybody, you are presumed innocent until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, at this point, contrary to all of the hullabaloo about the whole thing, there is not any race issue that has interjected itself at this point.
Except for media.
Yeah, well, that's what I was referring to. There's nothing in here to do that. And it's a flashpoint situation. It's not an unusual case. This stuff happens all the time. All the time. I've witnessed this kind of thing myself where somebody felt they were in fear and they were trying to run away and they stabbed our team quarterback with a knife and he wound up dying 12 hours later. And the question was, when the boy said he was in fear of his life, that didn't work out.
So I want to move the conversation to the defense lawyers because he changed lawyers. He had, I think the first lawyer was Kim Cole, and I forgot the other gentleman's name. So the Anthony family, I don't want to say dismissed, but they chose to go with another law firm, and the lead defense attorney is Mike Howard. And I want to play the clip of the defense attorney for the Anthony family, Mike Howard, talking after the bond hearing. One second. Here we go.
We can't do this in here. Please, 5 more seconds. I'm sorry.
5 more seconds? Okay. Good? Everybody good? Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are 2 sides to every story, and Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid and an excellent student. He is the captain of his track team. He is the captain of his football team. And prior to this, what was on his mind was what college he was going to go to. This is a tragedy all the way around for both families. Rushing to judgment, trial by public perception and trial by media is not how we ensure justice is done. We are confident that after a full investigation, that the truth will come out. Thank you.
Mike, you took umbrage with the state's assessment that this was simple and brutal. Why so?
Well, the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's 2 sides to every story, and we've only heard one side. In any criminal case, the police investigate, and the defense is always far behind that. And so it is a one-sided investigation to this point, and even that investigation is still ongoing. So to say that it happened this way or that way is just not accurate at this point. All of the facts are going to come out, and that's why our system of justice requires that we keep our minds open and we let the facts come out as they are after a full investigation.
Is your client going to be able to make bond and get out today?
I anticipate that he will be able to make bond. I can't speak to how quickly that will go. Funds, in the funds that have been raised are not quick to come out. And then, there's obviously a process to the release process once bond is posted.
The big question that a lot of people have is, why was this young man armed on school property?
That's an understandable question, but it's not something that, frankly, we're prepared to even go into. This is something that I know the police and the prosecution want to get it right and want to have a full and fair investigation, and so do we. So it would be irresponsible for me or them at this point to start saying, this is what happened, this is why, anything. So I understand that's a big question. It's going to be a big question, and it's something that we will find out, and we ask that the public, as hard as it is, withhold judgment and let both of these families have justice, that let both of these young men, the Metcalf family and the memory of who they've lost, but also Karmelo, have a fair and full justice process.
Do you know that you're feeling on the reduction of this bond? You feel it's fair?
I feel it's fair. Bond, as the judge said, is not supposed to be an instrument of oppression. It's not supposed to keep people in jail. It's not supposed to punish. It's supposed to ensure that a person shows up to court, complies with all conditions, and it's supposed to keep the community safe. So this is a large and substantial bond, and the judge has, I think, rightly imposed reasonable conditions that will ensure both Karmelo and the Anthony family's safety, but also the safety of the community.
What was Karmelo's reaction today? He didn't seem very talkative toward you. And how has jail, I guess, been so far for this teenager? And is he on suicide watch or anything like that?
I honestly can't speak to Karmelo's reaction because I was so focused on the hearing and what was going on and what the judge was saying. I think we have to all remember Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid who's never been in any sort of trouble before. If you can just put yourself in his shoes, this is a scary, bewildering process, and I can't even imagine what was going through his head, just as I'm sure I can't imagine what was going through the heads of the Metcalf family. So this is something that is new to all of them and incredibly trying.
So for people who want to know, why were you selected? I mean, what is your experience? I mean, you had to be really good.
I can't speak as to why I was selected. In any case, it's important to have an attorney that you connect with, that you feel has the right amount of experience and the right investment in the case. And I'm not speaking to anybody else. I just know that that's important in any case.
Just how unsafe does this family feel? You mentioned it multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to speak for them at this point, but I think you can imagine the press coverage on this case has been immense, and the online and public reaction has been immense. And unfortunately, as is common in our culture, especially lately, the vitriol and the public reaction one way or the other has been intense. And threats and talk of race war and all kinds of insanity isn't good for, obviously, the Anthony family. It's not good for the Metcalf family. It's not good for the peace and safety of our community. So, I would ask, and I know both sides would ask, that the temperature on this be allowed to come down, that the media, you guys have a job to do, and I understand that, everyone does, but at the same time, we just ask everyone in the public and everywhere to let this process play out fairly and fully for both sides.
Okay, the defense lawyer was talking a little too much. I think he laid out a problem for himself. I don't know if he realized it. What did he say the boy was captain of?
Either track and football. I think it was both.
It's both. Captain of the track team, captain of the football team. Now, you weigh supposedly too little to defend yourself, so it's a matter of disparate force. Well, if you play offense at his weight, what is he supposed to do when he confronts a defensive tackle, a defensive end, the defensive linebackers who are likely to weigh 200 plus pounds, 240, 250? What's he do? Lay down instead of continuing to run? Okay, if he plays defense and he's one of the defensive backs, which would be commensurate with his weight, what's he supposed to do when the offensive guard, offensive tackle, or the center, or a fullback, or a big running back decides to block him out? Does he just lay down, or does he go toe to toe? See, he defeats his theory that it was such disparate force that he had to use deadly force because he was no way, no how going to be able to defend himself against somebody that big. Every day of the week, 5 days a week of the school week, he's defending himself against people that big. Remember, he's captain of the football team. Every game he plays in on Friday, he's running up against one way, either defense or offense, against big guys like that. So why is he on the football field if he can't match them physically, at least to protect himself? You see, the whole thing washes into, okay, this guy's captain of the football team. That means he's not a bench warmer. He is an active player, so he plays a lot. And he wouldn't play a lot if he wasn't halfway good at what he does. So does the 130, 135, 100, 150 pound offensive back or wide receiver quit because he's got to run up against 240 pound linemen?
So
Or does
basically,
back quit because he's got to do that against offensive line?
okay, so basically, of course, the defense is using self-defense, but the prosecutors can come back and say, well, you have a kid who's captain of the football team and track, but football requires for you to tackle and,
Or block.
block and, excuse me, and a lot of times your opponent is going to be bigger than you. So you're not scared to do that. Why couldn't he just defend himself without a weapon against someone who seemingly is bigger than him?
Yeah. And then you get to the other point. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if we accept the defense position, that would mean that every single somebody who was getting whipped in a fist fight by a bigger person was entitled to pull out a knife or a gun or a club and use deadly force against the person he was fighting with. It doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
That becomes the comeback. So they're treading on very dangerous grounds, and they might wind up having to say this guy was fearful, so he was a punk. He was a good athlete, but he punked out when it came to the man on man thing. So he stabbed somebody in the chest, like so many emasculated boys do today when they listen to their mamas or the girls that they hear where they say, I'd cut his heart out, or like some fool did on our X Space. Remember the guy that said, I'd cut his heart out, blah, 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 if anybody did. And then, like the other person said, well, how many times, tell the audience how many times you've been to the penitentiary, you see. So,
But
that,
you also said that his defense attorney was talking too much at this press.
yeah, he talked too much. He should have said no further questions. I think we've answered the essential ones, which at this point have to do with the bond. So defense is conducting its own investigation as well to determine witnesses and statements that the witnesses might make and whether there's any video evidence somebody has on their cell phone. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and left it.
I wanna bring this into the fold because that the defense attorney did mention race, and you have a lot of digital content creators, social media personalities who have very large followings, right? And they are the ones that really started this race conversation into this case, which is why a lot of us content creators are talking about it. And this one particular person on X, Matt, let me put it this way. Matt Wallace, he writes, this evil judge deserves to spend the rest of her life in prison for what she did today, talking about reducing Carmelo Anthony's bail, right?
Ridiculous.
Very much ridiculous. And that is the problem that we have, and there have been
ignoramuses that know nothing about American law, its precepts, its foundation, and what it's trying to achieve. And see, they're off in the vendetta, and this is what creates mobs. And today, we have had at least 5 years worth of work up to this point, which makes it very dangerous because the public has been inured to the mob mentality. Once again, we don't need that.
Mhm.
This has nothing to do with race in the first place, from what I've heard so far.
Mhm.
So, wow. Even if that did have something to do with race, it didn't justify what happened.
Right. So, well,
And by the way, it's a root. See, what's getting me is it's a routine case. Why did you kill this man? Well, I didn't mean to kill him. I just stabbed him. Well, why did you stab him? Because I was afraid and I was emotional. That's no excuse. I don't know how many times somebody is sent immediately to my right, which is where they sit in my real courtroom for the state of Tennessee and got elected to 2 8-year terms as a criminal court judge. What I heard. This is a routine case. This happens all the time. Usually it's black on black or Hispanic on Hispanic or white on white. Sometimes it bounces around amongst the races where one person is of one race and another part of the
right.
group involved is of another.
Yeah.
But I don't see a particular race basis for this thing for
Well,
people to be getting upset unless they are just trying to find something to get upset about.
So I brought this to your attention earlier. Dominique Alexandra here, right? He is the advocate for the Anthony family, and he is also the head of this nonprofit organization called New Generation Action Network. But he is linked up with the Jasmine Crockett. He is also linked up with, it's called Next Generation, not new, with BLM.
Chick George.
I think it is a connection with the Action Network with Al Sharpton, but it says here, so the two attorneys that originally the Anthony family hired was attorneys for the Next Generation Action Network Foundation, and that guy Dominic is head of, who is advocating for the family. But now they went with this other lawyer, Mike Howard. I don't know if he's ever been affiliated with this organization, but the previous two were. Also, it says here the New Generation Action Network is a BLM supporting 501c based on full investigation, have brought in six figures, has yet a total of only 2 IRS reports since its inception, 2014. So I'm bringing this into the fold since we're talking about race a little bit, that I think that this person, Dominique, is an Al Sharpton 2.0. You know, is it political yet? No, but a lot of people locally in Texas, like this guy and his organization, and even the DA, they are going to use this case to build up their own resume and notoriety.
Yeah, the DA is elected. It's an interesting job. It pays fairly well for government jobs. So money's hard to come by. Lawyers charge ridiculous fees for the cases they do get. And I say ridiculous. And sometimes it's necessary because they don't have a big volume, because essentially we have too many lawyers for what they do now, and too many of them are essentially inexperienced, even though they've been out of law school for a while. The very good ones are pretty good right from the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to pick up a number of clients and have a lot of trial experience. And a good criminal trial lawyer is pretty good on his first trial because it's aptitude. But too many don't have that natural aptitude, and they lack what doctors find themselves needing, which is being interns and residents. You see, there's a process of doing that. When you're a lawyer, you go through a DA's office, a government agency, a public defender's office, or public service law firm. And the idea is to get as many trials as you can, so you see what happens when you put theory against the reality of live humans being persuaded or not persuaded by it.
So let me throw this also in here as well, because I noticed when it comes to white media creating this narrative of reverse racism, I've seen Megyn Kelly. I've seen like this particular person on X, Matt Wallace, and others, you know, the Daily Mail calling Carmelo Anthony, basically painting him as a lifelong criminal, taking away the element of a teenager. Yes, he technically murdered someone. Yes, he did. But just stripping him of any type of fair humanity. And so
it's not their job to make somebody look good. That is something that does not interject itself into a court. So it's unrealistic to assume the press is going to make anybody look like an angel. Historically and currently, the press tends to be against defendants. So it is what it is. And then the other thing is, he talks about he's only 17. That doesn't wash. A whole lot of people, when you talk about 17, start thinking about 15 and 16-year-olds burglarizing their cars, holding up stores, snatching purses. Interestingly enough, when I was on the bench, one of my last two cases involved a 15-year-old charged with multiple murders who was on trial as an adult, and a 16-year-old who was accused of a particularly heinous homicide. Myself, I got a stay of execution from somebody who was 15 years, 2 weeks old on the date of his execution, scheduled execution. And he supposedly killed 3 people when he was in the 7th grade. So, you know, that's the new thing. The gangs and such like, they recruit the 13, 14, 15-year-olds because they tell them you're juveniles. They can't try you as an adult. So they have the young teenagers pull off the hits.
So
And it's becoming a problem. So when you argue 17 years old, or you try to say he was only 17, a whole lot of people get the wrong idea. That might not be a fruitful pursuit.
So let me ask you this though, because I agree with you. You know, the press have always not taken the side of the defense, or create like a negative narrative. So do you think that there may be, the defense may ask for a change of venue?
They might, and whether they get it, I don't know. So far, it's been pretty fair. The DA has been very restrained, unlike Miss Fanny down in Fulton
Oh,
County.
we did not forget about her. We're going to be talking about her for the
Yeah, but see, this DA is moderate, so I haven't heard anything that would prejudice the jury yet.
Mhm.
And the only thing that's coming out is the press. So, I mean, it's going to depend on what the jury pool looks like. Is it reasonably representative of the local population or of the district wherein it is found?
Mhm.
I'm sure the DA is not going to exclude anybody just because they're black and evoke a Batson situation, which is you can't exclude somebody because of their race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, or condition of infirmity, unless the infirmity is such that they would not be able to properly assess and evaluate witnesses. Now,
Another thing. So, all right, I want to stay in Texas, but this is a slightly different topic here, and I don't want to forget because
barn door eyelashes.
no, no, not Jasmine Crockett. No. Listen, Jasmine Crockett she has not mentioned nothing about this case, even though this is in her state, near her district. Roland Martin, who is in Texas as well. However, I guess Roland Martin should have mentioned it because he's media. But I think she needs to be quiet because you don't want to make this political. But she is associated with Dominique Alexander from Next Generation Action Network. She is affiliated with him. They have a picture together right here.
And
So
somebody sent me a photo, or not sent me, but showed me a photo.
yeah, this one here.
Where Jasmine Crockett is in the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they pump fist, got the little pump fist going on, and he does rallies for the illegals. Oh, they need our protection, immigration reform. So he's part of that, and that's what I'm saying. That Al Sharpton 2.0.
They're going to jail. Again, apparently nobody has talked to them and advised them of what Title 8, Section 1324 of the United States Criminal Code say.
Mm-hmm.
Says in their sections after the initial one.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to jail if anybody prosecutes them.
So yeah, so it's not publicly politicized, but it's politicized already because of who are people connected to these nonprofits, their intentions. You could make money off this. She could be in the background, directing resources or certain people. I don't know if this new attorney is affiliated with the DNC or BLM, but BLM is affiliated with the Next Generation Action Network. So it's that whole Democrat woke type of thing going on.
Every now and then there is a case that does have some elements that should not be in the case that have interjected themselves, race and things like that. So it trivializes those real cases when you bring it up on this. This is not a matter of race, anything else. This is a boy who pulls out a knife and stabs somebody in the chest because he was defending himself. And he probably thought he was righteous in doing it because the media has been so inept and has failed so badly in its proper role under the First Amendment of informing the American public. And with what the media has pulled up these days, he probably thinks he did okay. And it's going to come as a shock to him when he finds out how wrong he was when he did that.
So, one last thing. Texas passed a new law. Texas Senate passes law requiring fathers to pay pre-child support starting at the date of conception. And I wholeheartedly 1000% agree with that.
Maybe.
What say you?
I don't like it.
Why?
Because oftentimes it turns out that the putative father of the person accused is not the dad. You ever watch Maury Povich?
Yes.
Okay. And I have the test results. You are the third person she's accused of being the father of the child. Please pass me the envelope. And you are not the father.
So it says under Texas SB 942, a judge could order retroactive child support payments beginning on the date of conception.
Now, that's different. That's where somebody is proven to be the father. Retroactive payments, I have no problem with.
The bill has passed the Senate and has to make it through the House before being signed by the governor. So how does child support currently works? Currently, Texas child support doesn't take effect until the child is born. Retroactive child support is typically limited to 4 years back from the time of filing, unless there is evidence the man knew or should have known he was the father and tried to avoid supporting the child.
That's pretty much in line with the current state of affairs around the
Right.
nation.
That's what they currently have. So now this new bill, SB 942, under this law, a judge could order retroactive child support payments beginning on a date of conception instead of at birth. The father will be responsible for a share of reasonable and necessary prenatal and postnatal health care expenses.
If the mother actually incurred any expenses or the state wants reimbursement for paying out welfare. That's where they're probably going to bring this into play. The other thing is what expense do you need? Think about it. Do you know the moment you conceived?
They could tell you.
Yeah, but do you know the moment you conceived? So why is that relevant?
You can know, yeah.
No, that's not the point. Did you know that after you got up, oh, I'm knocked up, so I'm going to go see my gynecologist or my pediatrician so I can start prenatal care the morning after? You take a pill the morning after, not go get prenatal care because you don't know. So what kind of realistic prenatal care is going to start on day one? See, the law is trying to accomplish something, and it got ridiculous with the way it sought to do it.
Well, I guess meaning day one when you find out that you're pregnant and you're keeping it, that's when your prenatal care starts.
Yeah, but but it says from the moment of conception.
Well, okay, so I go to the doctor, you're pregnant, right? I'm keeping it. The doctor can calculate, well,
that doesn't make any difference. It's what expenses of a prenatal nature have you incurred from the moment of your pregnancy up to the point where you find out you actually are pregnant after you've missed your menses for that month?
Okay, so you're talking about what expenses occur from the moment of conception to the moment she found out.
Yeah, well, not the moment she found out, but you see, that's the way what you read to me
No.
will read out. Well, read it again. What's it say?
Okay,
I got
because what they were saying is the moment I find out that I'm pregnant and I'm keeping it, that's the moment he's paying child support.
yeah, but not child support. You actually have to have an expense. See, it's not the mother.
Okay, so let me.
It's for the
Wait,
benefit of the child.
slow down. Child support just isn't you giving me money for diapers, meaning health care.
I know that, but the point is when does a woman start seeking health care for?
When she finds out she's pregnant.
Yes. So not when she finds out, at some point after she finds out.
Okay, so it says
it would have been
Let me read it. It says paternity would have to be established. The date of conception will be determined by a doctor or through other evidence such as a parent's testimony. Bill heads to the House. The bill is not law yet. The House will have to pass it, and then the governor would need to sign it. So basically, when do you know? When the parent testimony says this is when I conceive.
Just like you're an expert. This is when I was pregnant. When?
I could tell you.
No, but you see, you don't understand paternity cases. This is funny, and it's an actual case that I tried as a defense lawyer. I was going to ask this girl, this woman. She was.
I'm sorry. Can you just hold for 1 second? Just hold for 1 second. Let's just give me 30 seconds. Censored. And it's been several other people's. He knows better than you. He never got pregnant and he never gave birth. So in that department, he does not. And people just, and this is going to your point with the Karmelo Anthony and the fair trial and the noise of social media. People just say dumb shit just to be saying dumb shit. But go ahead.
Okay, now back to this issue. This young woman was on the witness stand, and she was accusing my client of being the father of the child. She was trying to contend that she was only in the 7th grade when this happened. It was, but there was a situation with that. I was getting ready to ask the woman the question, please, ma'am, isn't it true that you were in the 7th grade for 5 years? She was. She interrupted me when I said, ma'am, please, ma'am, isn't it a fact? Before I could get the rest out, she says, all right, I admit I had sex with those 6 men you have out there sitting on the bench. I looked at my client, what 6 men? I didn't call anybody. So she said that. And then she had been very sexually active. So one particular evening, my client said, I heard she had sex with 4 different guys. So I said, well, I'm going to ask her because she's crazy enough to give me an answer that won't hurt us. I said, ma'am, please, ma'am, isn't it a fact that on the evening of so-and-so, you had sex with 4 different guys? She said, that's a lie. I said, oh, here we go. She said it wasn't 4, it was 7. I know how many I can handle. So, ma'am, you had sex with 7 young men on the evening in question. Yeah. So she was trying to claim that this guy now we've got 6 out on the bench, 7 more, that's 13. And then 5 more, that made 18 people she had sex with. She's supposed to know which one of them, him, got her pregnant. And by the way, this was before the DNA test. She just brought the accusation. And the blood tests were indeterminative. So out of the 18 boys she had sex with in this 4-day period, she's supposed to be able to tell when she got pregnant and who she got pregnant by. Which one of the 18 was responsible?
Right. So this law.
See,
Oh,
you're
wait,
wrong in the
let me speak. Let me speak. This law, this is after the paternity is confirmed that this particular man is the father. So some men request a paternity test, and he has every right to it. So once if he is requesting it and paternity comes back saying you are the father, then they calculate, okay, when was his baby conceived?
Mm-hmm.
But this is after the paternity is established that that
Mm-hmm.
man is the father. So what you're talking about, what you're talking is like, no, you can't just say he is because he has a right to say, well, I want proof.
Okay, hold on. Now, let's suppose she was dating the same kid and she had sex with him 2 or 3 times a day for 3 weeks before, well, for 3 weeks, then they broke up or something, and then she misses her period, she gets tested. Which day during the 3-week period she's having sex with this guy almost every day is it that she got pregnant? You
Well,
see,
it's not, yeah, you're not going to pinpoint the day, but you
I
would
know that. So
pinpoint
what
the
happens
month.
is the law as drafted would have been much better if they simply, without trying to go into that mess they're going into, have simply said the father will be responsible for all determinable health care expenses, which is what the law is in most states, by the way. If you are the father, you're responsible for the maternity cost.
That's not really.
Yeah, it is in a number of states. I've tried,
Oh, in a number of states, yeah, not in all states, because that
not
was
in
the case
all,
in
but
New Jersey.
so
Now, but here's the thing, though. So in the state of New Jersey, that's not mandatory, or that's not like written down. But a woman can go in, but this is after the child is born, not while she's pregnant. So after the child is born and he's paying child support, she can also ask for the child to be on his health insurance. But see, with this Texas law, she has the right to be compensated for the health care services while she was pregnant, because she can't make him um pay for her health care services, and he doesn't know if the baby is his. So that's why it's retroactive.
yeah, I have no problems
But
with
you're
the
just saying the wording, should change.
they went off on it. And see the way it works, I know what they're doing because they've been doing it for 50 years. And not all states do it, but a lot of them do it. Texas wasn't part of this. What they're trying to do is recoup costs that they have spent, sometimes providing free medical services for the mother who is on welfare. And that's what they're trying to do, is get their money back,
No,
meaning
that's true too. Yeah. No, that's true too, because right, if she's on welfare, or they're gonna get their money back regardless, right? But if she's not, that that woman who is not on welfare, she will be reimbursed for the expenses that she had to.
actually incurred.
Right.
Because the typical one that you're going to get in most of these cases is there would be a neglect of the prenatal care.
Right. All right. So I had a couple more things, but we could say that for when you record and
Oh,
just.
by the way, I must tell you my final argument on this case.
Which one?
The one I was
Oh,
telling you about, the woman that admitted to dealing with 18 boys over a 4-day period.
Mm.
I said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this shall be defense counsel's briefest argument ever. We've heard the evidence, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard the admissions from the complainant in this case. But you know how this works out. You jump in a bed of thorns and roll over. It's awful hard to tell which individual thorn stuck you. Defense rest. So the judge charged the jury, and the bailiff passed them the file jacket. And the judge says, you may commence your deliberations first order of business will be to select a foreperson or a foreman. The jury got out of the box and went down the hallway, and the bailiff was looking down the hallway, says, Your Honor, there seems to be a problem. So he motioned to
How long is this story?
wait, hold on. Motioned to counsel.
We're gonna get to super chats.
I know, but he motioned to counsel, which included me and the plaintiff's attorney. So we walked over to see what's going on, and the jury is gathered outside the jury room. The judge said, Is there a problem? One of the jurors said, Yeah, no problem, Your Honor. We've already got a verdict. What should we do? The judge said, Well, you haven't even gone back to the jury room. He said, But we have a verdict. Judge said, Well, do you have a foreman? And somebody said, I'll be the foreman. Everybody said, we concede. Okay, you're the foreman. Well, the judge said, if you got a foreman in a verdict, write it up. So they stood in the hallway and checked the boxes, finding my defendant was not the father. And the judge invited them back. He said, I've been practicing and presiding for a long time. That's the fastest verdict. I sometimes set a stopwatch. You got a verdict in 42 seconds from when you got the file jacket. He said, extraordinary. So the judge started laughing. I ran into him later. He bought me a drink and said, I had fun with that case. And the fool you tried it against doesn't even understand why he lost.
I always find your court stories so boring.
They're not boring to people.
They are. Like, you
would make good TV.
You
see a jury doing that?
Some of the things, maybe one or two, but for the most part, like, you be cracking up, and I'm like, how is this funny?
If you see any movie or anything, how often do you ever see a fictional case where the jury gets up the box, walks to the jury room, doesn't even go in and says, we got a verdict? And the judge says, what? Well, you haven't been in the jury room to deliberate. Doesn't make any difference. We have a verdict. Well, write it up. Come on back. And one of them said, could we go in there after we finish and get a cup of coffee? I'm kind of, want some coffee.
So, all right. I don't know. And I'm talking, see, people don't know we speak on the phone, and I never find your court cases fun. I don't know what it is, but you be cracking up. So listen, Kelly Silverman says, Dana, I caught some of your Twitter space broadcasts yesterday with with ABL and others 100. Thank you. Yeah, I was so glad Anthony was able to comment ABL on YouTube. I follow him too. Dana, this is one of the main reasons. I'll put a full moon. Oh, it's always these hating ass bitches. Y'all be so mad, honey. Y'all mad. Then this is one of the main reasons you're not married. You're not relevant to a man's interest of discussion. But I have this man up here every week religiously for the past over 2 years. Three. I'm doing since 2020. 4. Since 2020. This is a 5th year. So I had this man right here for 5 years, boo boo. Y'all be stay mad, honey. Yeah, please stay mad. Thank you, Walter, for the super chat. Hoshi 51, glad to catch the live show tonight. Yes. Laramar, Dana, where did you meet the judge? I enjoy your content. I hopped in his DM. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah.
I hopped in
his, I know.
I hopped in his ex DM. I was like, hi, I follow you. I think you're great. Can I interview you? And he said yes. And I did one interview. I waited like another month, asked him again. He said yes. Waited probably another month or two. He said yes. And then COVID hit. And then I was bugging him. And I was like, we might as well just make this a weekly thing. And so, and at that point in his life, he wasn't busy. He technically was in retirement, but then I kind of pulled him out of it. So yeah, and there you have it. Tourism in El Salvador. Yeah, right. It's probably a beautiful country. All right. Thank you. Faith is all we need. Judge, talk about the law, not your own situation, please. I love you, sir. but he
Excuse
was
me.
not.
What do you think I'm telling you? You sit on a bench or you sit at the council table for 50 years and you talk about the law, you're talking about your own experiences, and you're getting benefit of a half century of observations from a trial lawyer or a trial judge. Even things when I did 15 years doing binding contractual arbitration in California that was televised, we still dealt with real cases, real situations, and real circumstances, and it was interesting. You can't tell me it didn't get fascinating. Look at all of the people who looked at.
Well, let me finish reading. She says, "I love you, sir, but he was not hired to be a bouncer or a security guard." Exactly.
That doesn't make any difference. That's not the law. In other words, if you have a party and somebody tries to crash the party, the hostess, who is a young woman, doesn't have to be the one that throws the crasher out into the street or off the front porch into the wet grass. It can be any guest at the party. It can be any invitee in there can come up and intervene to make sure there's no public disorder and to stop the trespass. Now,
You still on that damn trespass, honey.
Yeah, in other words, she just asked that. She says,
but that student was not a bouncer or a security guard. That's
he doesn't have
responsibility.
He doesn't have to
I'm
be.
riding with faith. So all right, so his holiness, thank you. He says, Dana, JJB is right. Best way I can explain is if the tent belongs to the team has a reasonable expectation of privacy in the tent.
That's right.
Privacy to do what?
Whatever the hell they want to do. That's why
he wasn't invading nobody's.
That's why
privacy.
I gave
well,
you.
Even if he was, let's just put trespass on the table. Even if he was invading privacy or trespassing, that's a security's.
It's not a security. Security has no more authority than any team member has or the coach has.
Any adolescent, any non-adult.
It doesn't make any difference.
Someone who's not an adult has the same authority as a security guard.
The militia.
Answer that question.
The militia, I'm going to explain it easily.
Because a 17-year-old has the same authority as a security guard.
Yeah, because the security guard has no more authority than the employer. And the whole thing is you hire somebody to keep public order rather than doing it yourself. The example I gave to explain it is, let's forget the tent. Let's talk about the team bench.
All right.
Any player or the coach have to call security to tell members of the opposite team, hey, get off our bench, go back to your own.
Audrey, Karmelo is 130 pounds and the McClaff twins weigh 225 each.
Bullshit. He's a football player. And by his own lawyer, he's captain of
you gotta let me finish.
team.
Stop. Let me finish reading her comments. Stop.
Yeah, well, it's bullshit from the beginning.
Listen, the force was justified. That was Austin's knife, anyways. Hunter said Austin grabbed his backpack. Whose backpack did Austin grab?
That's what people were saying night before last. But it's not what has come out in terms of what's been offered as evidence so far. We have
read some of the evidence and said that Austin did approach him and was the aggressor.
Well, that doesn't make any difference.
No, we don't have the video yet. That
it doesn't make any difference because the defendant said spontaneously, I did it because I was in fear of my life.
He said self-defense.
Yes, self-defense.
Thank you, Faith.
You're not entitled to use a knife.
Okay,
you are not the standard. You personally are not the standard.
Then let me say
this. Hold on. Let me finish.
You said he's not the standard, but then again, you said that a teenager is the standard to prevent someone from being under their tent.
Look. Anybody who has a standing to be under the tent can object to anybody else. The team captain of the track team is the defendant. He certainly had standing to tell an opposing team member or members of the opposing school to get out
No,
of
you can tell them.
team
Yeah, you can tell
domain.
them. Yes,
Well,
you have a right to tell them.
yes,
You don't have the right to get physical.
you do.
No, you don't.
May use non-lethal force to eject a trespasser.
No, you
See,
do not.
that's where the whole self-defense thing breaks down. Next thing, even if he had no authority to do that, the defendant had no authority to escalate physical, nonviolent
All right, let me read this. Let me read this.
force. Now, I'm addressing this clown thing about he only weighed 130 and the other boy weighed 220.
Call her a clown.
I'm calling it a clown because it's ridiculous.
It's a
You're the
woman
captain
who
of the football
donated
team.
and take the time out.
You're the captain of the football team.
But don't call somebody a clown because they disagree with you.
I'm calling it a clown because it's giving that little
And
soft.
can I call people a clown?
It's giving that
and be
effeminate
disrespectful
thing.
towards me?
It says that boys are not any different than girls. He's the team captain for the football team, so he plays. He either plays offense or defense. If he plays offense at that size, he's either a running back or a wide receiver. He's got 220-pound linebackers, 3 of them, maybe 4 of them he has to deal with. He's got defensive linemen, the defensive ends, the defensive tackles, and they're going to weigh 230, 240, 250. So he's going to have to run up against him. If he's a defensive player and he's the team captain, that means he's going to be a defensive back. So he has the offensive line, the tight end, who's going to weigh plus 200 pounds. He's got the center, who's going to weigh over 200. He's got the guards, 2 of them who are going to weigh over 200 likely. He's got the offensive tackles who are going to weigh over 200 apiece. He's got the running backs who are likely to be a lot bigger. So if he can't handle going up against somebody considerably bigger, he's got no business being on the football field, where the name of the game is hard applied violence, where everybody is supposed to be putting out 100% on non-weaponized violence. So if that is a legitimate thing that you try to tell me he lays down every time somebody comes to block him or tackle.
Let me move on to other super chats.
Now that's how ridiculous that is.
Faith is all we need, but the police officer in Minneapolis can call taser and say she didn't know it was her gun. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. If you've ever been shot at or been in the hot and heavies, a whole lot of stuff narrows down and people make mistakes. They mistake something for other stuff. They have changed some of these non-lethal devices, tasers, because they're too much like a gun. You don't look down and say, oh, I want the yellow thing. You're trained to go grab, to draw, because your attention has got to be 100% on the person in front of you. If your taser is holstered so you can reach it with your gun hand, that is an ample opportunity for a disaster to occur, where somebody quickly retrieves, draws, presents the taser, they think, and they grab the gun instead. So when somebody is in an adrenaline rush situation, they lose sensitivity in the hand. They don't feel the difference. A lot of things go wrong. I know people who've done crazy stuff. It's a bad move. You should not carry your phaser where it is accessible by your gun hand.
All right.
It should be on the opposite side. That's a training issue.
Okay,
It
fine.
leaves civil liability.
Derek Brown, thank you so much. He says, was he in fear and did he act in self-defense? Was it reasonable? 2 boys at 225, 6'1" against 1 kid, 135.
Yeah,
question.
He plays football. He's the captain of the football team. Every time he's out there, when it's him on the defense, it's him against 11 players, most of whom weigh that much. When he's an offensive player, it's him against the whole defense if he ever gets the ball in his hand, and they all weigh that much. So bottom line is,
argument, Judge,
he
is not
is the
gonna
captain
hold.
of
I don't think the
football.
argument will hold.
He
That
plays regularly,
You know
so
what?
he
You
goes
know
up
what?
there.
Because I hear what you're saying. It makes sense. But I'm going to say it's not going to hold because say if it's in a different situation, just because you play football, right, and you are blocking or tackling or whatever the case may be, or getting hit yourself, that doesn't mean that you could run around here and equally, defend or fight and defeat someone who is bigger than you. And we're
Well,
talking
let's put it
about
this way.
outside of the sport. So that's a weak argument if the
Let's
DA
put it, no, it's not weak. You see, you have some football players on the jury. You may have. A lot of people played football in high school. A few less played in college. I played in college, UCLA, and in high school. I know that is a fact. Most of the time when you're playing football, it's a lot physically rougher than it is when you are in a damn fist fight.
All right.
And you may have jurors on there who would tell you that, and they'll sit back there in the back and they'll quietly listen, and when they get back in the jury room, they'll talk. See, the defense can prevail. I probably could keep the boy from getting second degree or first degree murder or even manslaughter, but
how can you?
I mean, if I was the lawyer, I know how to deal with it. It's art, talent, way to deal
Well, then
with
maybe this lawyer could do it too if he's
it.
talented.
Maybe. I'm just saying, when you start looking at it, I do it in terms of
But you
degree.
sound more like of a prosecutor than you do a defense attorney right now.
Yeah, because this is a prosecutor's classic case. See, this is not unusual. This is a
Wait, slow
common
down for a second.
case.
I need to get through these super chats. Let me
All
get
I'm
through the
saying,
super chats.
finish this. It's a common case.
Fine.
This
Let's get
happens a
through the
lot.
super chats. We talked about this for
Now,
over 2 hours.
well, people need to know it. That how many
these are
years
people that send in super
if you
chats.
call this wrong, like some folk are doing, like he had a right to
Listen, it
stab
doesn't
him.
matter how we call it. We're
Listen,
not the jury.
how
or
many
the
people?
judge.
Listen, how many people over the Twitter space, X space, and this are talking about he had a right to
Yeah,
stab?
but you can't change people's minds.
Now I
if you
know,
think
but
of it a
here's the
certain way.
point. Here's the point. How much time are they going to get if they do that and they run afoul of the law? How much time are they going to spend in the penitentiary? So is it 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes extra versus 20 years in the penitentiary? 2 years in the penitentiary?
We go through the super chats. You don't
Okay,
have
go
to give
ahead.
an invitation after each one. Just
Go ahead.
let people talk.
Go
People
ahead.
have a right to comment.
Yeah, they have a right to comment, but they
Whether
should
you like it or not, they have a right to say what they want to say.
Yeah, and they have an
Hey, let me
obligation
say this.
to
You don't
follow the
defend me.
law.
You don't defend me when people say nasty shit about me in the comments.
I do. I tell them all the time.
Because they go every
Hey,
time I go
you
live.
jump in there, you don't give me a
Every time I go live, they say nasty shit. But,
well,
but the chat doesn't stay up, so their comment is irrelevant to me.
go ahead.
Let me
Keep
go.
going with the super chat.
Faith says, faith is all we need. Says, put yourself in his situation. If you're scared, what would you do?
Take the ass whooping.
Okay. Faith again. He says, if 2 big linebackers are coming after you, you're not going to be able to call a teacher or run.
You take the ass whooping.
Faith again. Thank you, Faith. Faith is on the road tonight. Appreciate you. Trump said, fight, fight, fight.
Yeah, we fight. We're humans.
Faith again says, that's what the plan is, a race war. Stand down.
Where is the race war coming
No,
in?
meaning media is trying to start a race war.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, they are.
Rod 870 says, Joe Brown is an old coon. I'm out.
Oh, fuck off, idiot. You sissy ass fool. You ain't done crap for the black race, so quit perpetrating. Probably scared of anybody that sits up and talks to you wrong face to face. So back off, fool. You haven't paid the dues I have. I have. So you put those dues out there, you go stand up for your race over all these years, and then you can talk. Meanwhile, shut up.
All right. Faith again says, bingo, Dana. I think that was with the maternity thing. Then thank you, Faith. I really appreciate all the support you've been showing tonight, everybody. Ibn says this interaction for the last 10 minutes shows how patriarchal black culture, patriarchal black culture and the black community is. Salute to you, Judge Joe Brown. Nigga, what the fuck are you talking about? Now I'm
I
cursing.
know what he's talking about. What he's talking about.
No. He said that no, listen. He said this interaction for the last 10 minutes of the show. Bitch, this is a fucking show, but with me and him. This not no interview.
He's
This is what we do is interact.
you. He's not talking about you. He's talking about the other interactions, like the last one we just got about it. He was only 130 pounds.
No, he's talking about me and you. He's talking about me. Yeah.
I don't think
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't see what people, you don't understand what they be saying. And this is why I'm saying, to the ignorance, this is a show. I'm not interviewing this man. Now, when it comes to the law, yes, he's going to lay it down. That's the caveat. But this is a show where you're going to hear my fucking opinion, because I run shit here.
Okay,
So,
now
I don't understand. What did he mean by the last interaction, the last 10 minutes? Me and you always bicker.
He's talking about what I interacted with some of your super chat. That's what he's talking about.
Even if that's the case, why are you in your fucking feelings as a man? And
he's not in it.
Wait. And then he goes, here he go, one of the people, black community, black culture. Get the fuck out of here.
What he's saying is,
he ain't saying shit.
He is. I get it. What he's talking about.
Oh, it's funny how you get his shit, but you don't want to say.
What he's talking about is when you start talking. Look, when you start talking about men having to go to extremes because they are in danger.
He was. Wait, hold on. Go ahead. What you saying? I'm trying to. He was saying something in the chat. What you saying? Judge?
Oh, what he's reflecting is that the attitude coming out of the super chat in terms of the questions I'd answered, specifically those that I addressed it much earlier tonight about him being 130 pounds, which I haven't heard anything about him actually weighing 130 pounds right now. That may have been when he started playing b-ball or freshman, but he's 17 now, and we don't know how tall he is or whatever the circumstances are. And quite frankly, from what's been in the news where you see him, the pictures, he's not.
He said I was talking about the chat in general. And but see, that's what I'm talking about, sir. And everybody, listen, everybody say, for the most part, my chat talks to the subject. They do go off kilter when they focus on me, but I'm not changing. But again, that's your freedom.
Miss Dana, go ahead. Keep going.
That's your freedom of speech. So this is what I don't like. This is what I can't stand. Grown men, you want to bring up black culture and black people. That has nothing to do with your dislike. Stop. And that's what I'm saying. Stop doing that. If you got a problem with what women are saying or what men are saying, so what? That's their right to say what they want to say in the chat or in the comment section. Now, if people are being overly disrespected, I may time them out or whatever the case may be. But don't sit up here and say, well, this is the problem with the black community. It has nothing to do with black culture or black community. That's what I'm saying. People need to stop with that. Let me get back to the super chat.
Okay. One little quick observation. I know what is being put out in media right now. If you listen to that stuff and act on it like this boy did, you will be in jeopardy of going to jail or getting one of these $1 million bonds that will not be reduced. That's not the law. It has always been the situation that sometimes one person involved in the fracas, the affray, is a lot bigger than the other. Every time that happens, that's not justification for the smaller guy stabbing the bigger guy in the chest with a knife if it's supposed to be a manly fist fight.
Okay. Let me get to. Give me a second, Judge. Where was I? Oh, okay. Anthony, thank you. Thumb activated taser safer from muscle memory of index finger. I don't. Maybe that was an emoji or something.
That's what I was talking about, where that thing with the phaser, where that woman
Oh.
shot the
Oh
guy.
no, maybe it was an emoji. Okay, he's talking about the taser thing.
Yeah, see, it was just an interjection, but I'm not excusing the woman, but it reduces the degree of culpability because that is an accident waiting to happen. That was a training issue, that was a design issue. You should not make a non-lethal device feel the same and be in the same approximate place as a lethal device. It invites somebody to pull the lethal device and treat them earnestly by mistake as though it were the non-lethal. And when people get full of adrenaline, it happens. Also, cops are just like ordinary people. We don't have fist fights now like we used to. We don't have standing up to bullies. We have security, we have teachers, we have the police, sheriffs, deputies, and parents protecting the delicate child from having to stand up to a bully. Why? One part shows just what happened in this case because somebody goes off and stabs somebody in the chest and kills them when all it was a fist fight. You can't have an honest fist fight these days because somebody wants to escalate it.
All right. Thank you, Faith, again, because he called bull mess. That girl Sean Judge, parent waiting on his child, saw both the brothers assaulting Carmelo. The victim had a rep of bullying. If it's true, does that help defense?
No, because the issue is not whether he was entitled to self-defense. It is the nature and degree of the self-defense effort. In other words, it may be that somebody is going to engage in fisticuffs, wrestling, or anything like that. That does not justify, per se, moving up to use of deadly force. That is one of the problems with why bullies are not dealt with and why boys don't get the experience of dealing with bullies is because somebody wants to jump up and kill somebody behind what ought to be just a fist fight. There have been big guys since time immemorial, and they usually run things on the playground, and the idea is to figure out how to outsmart them. And you don't go kill them because you might get a behind whipping.
All right.
Now, in order to justify what he's doing, legally justify what he did, the defense is going to have to show that the defendant was in danger of suffering death or bodily injury that was serious enough for him to be put at risk of dying. You can only use deadly force to oppose deadly force.
Okay. Thank you to Just Me for the super sticker. Ibn again, Judge J. Brown is our elder. We owe him respect. Yeah, you do owe him respect, sir. But you, as a grown ass man, need to get out your feelings. Nobody's up here disrespecting him. And you need to give him a little bit more respect and don't think because of his age, he is somebody who's weak. Because if I was disrespecting him, he would not be here at all. So you need to get out your feelings, sir, because I called you out on your silly BS. And that's the problem. Since you want to talk about black, what if you like if I said that's the problem with you black men? You're too emotional.
Okay, let's put another example.
Can you hold that for a second? Let me just go through these super chats because thank you, William Livingston says, Dana, here are my 5. I don't want you to hurt me. That's funny. And thank you again, Just Me, 130 pounds and 5'9" was from the police report. Okay. What was you going to say, Just? Because we're about to close out.
Well, let's put it this way. 2013, in a 5-star facility in Aspen, Colorado, there was a 240-pound New Zealander who was out of it, and he was snatching women's blouses open and ripping down their bras to look at their bosoms. Well, he attempted to do that to my goddaughter and my wife at the time. So I took him down, choked him out, let him revive, and then put him halfway back in and told him he had to leave the club. So I had him down on the ground. So I'm not much taller than this boy is right there, but this guy outweighed me by a lot. But I was only 68 years old, so what the devil? Well, 66 years old, so I guess maybe I had some maturity on him. He was about 30, 34, 35.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have a defense of it's a larger man, and that so overwhelms the smaller one, because it's 60 some years old and being much shorter, this guy, and a lot lighter. I guess that would have justified me pulling out my pocket knife and stabbing this guy in the chest. No, I put him out. Took him out. I played football too. I was a defensive back. And a lot of times it's like kind of
No, Jamila, I am like his daughter, but the fact is that I don't. Do you really think I care if you think I'm disrespecting him? See, all of y'all people. This is the thing, and this goes towards Carmelo Anthony, and this is my last remarks for the night. Because you don't like something doesn't mean that's what the fuck it is. So what? You don't like it. That doesn't mean things gonna go your way. That justice should be what you like. That's not reality. Because you don't like something. Well, you don't, she got an attitude, she disrespectful. So fucking what?
Dana and I squabble. We talk for hours.
Where you going?
Leave me alone.
So
Like
I'm
really
about let me flex, let me pump my collar. Where you going, sir? Where you going, Mr. Brown, Mr. Judge? Nowhere. Now, if somebody pull up that money bag, he will leave.
I'll bring you along anyway.
But y'all be mad like he ain't no fucking elder. I don't know why you be getting people food all the time. I don't know why you keep doing that shit.
I'm not infirm now.
Listen. If you want to call this man an elder, then you need to call your president of the United States an elder. Y'all don't look at him like no fucking elder. So don't disrespect him and say to this man here that he's a fucking elder. Because the president
I'm younger than Trump by a few months.
Yeah, the president is older than Judge Joe Brown. So if you can't look at your president, you don't see an elder, then why you see an elder in this black man? Now check your shit with that. Your bias. And I'm talking to black people and you white people too. What you said, Dana, you didn't read my last super chat. Friedman, I didn't see it. What is this?
Look, let me say something.
What does that mean?
This is an important something. I'm not trying to give you legal advice. I'm simply saying, when you start giving me your opinion, your problem with your opinion is this: you haven't set up for 50 years and make the real deal happen. All of those things that you see in the movies and the television series, I did for real. Day in, day out for 6 to 15 to 18 hours a day. I was stuck in the midst of doing this. This is what I did for a job. I'm merely telling you what the law says and what the impact and effect of the law is, and how easy you will find yourself in an intractable position because you think you're justified in doing something to somebody so you can save yourself pain. Only from threats of death or injury that is likely to or might cause death do you have an entitlement to use deadly force. If you do it otherwise, even if you were entitled to act in self-defense, you will still likely go to jail. You may have a self-defense right, but it has limits. That does not mean you can kill somebody unless they're trying to kill you.
All right, Freeman, I'm sorry. I missed your last super chat, but I'll read it. I'll read it off. I can't show it because I didn't save it. It says, shake my head. Question, Judge. Do white folks ever do anything wrong and black folks shouldn't do anything to protect themselves?
That's not just what this situation is. White and black guys, boys, men have had fights since time immemorial. Sometimes they'd be on the same team, sometimes not. That's not what this is about. If there is a genuine issue of racism, there are ways to respond accordingly. And sometimes people may have to do what you have to do, but you wind up going to the penitentiary. If you're willing to pay that cost, and go for it, but not because it's emotional. And by the way, you have all this time. You mean to tell me that while you're going out buying Air Jordans and stuff, you couldn't take the money and pay for a few lessons in martial arts? And by the way, how big was Bruce Lee?
Well, he's basically saying, do you ever see anything wrong that white people do, like criticize?
Yes, hell yes.
He does.
You know, you're talking crap. See, okay, my client, Thomas Burrell, and another client I had, we prevailed up country in Tennessee. When the sheriff gets there, I got a 357 in one hand and a 45 in another, and a briefcase with court order on top of a pickup truck. And the sheriff is going there and everybody's got guns pulled on everybody. World War III is about to stop until he gets a chance to look at the court order, and then he tells all his buddies to go get the hell out of there. See, you haven't done that, but that's a reality. You haven't grown up in Los Angeles in the 1960s when LAPD was, what did Parker say, the chief? He said, soon enough, they'll be back on the bottom where they belong. Or like Richard Pryor joked in some of his albums, get busted by LAPD, stop. On the wall, what wall? Find one.
All right, thank you again, Ibn. He says you are the one acting upset, saying insults and cursing.
Well, that's my prerogative.
Well, he's talking to me. No. The sissy here is talking to me. I wasn't trying to attack you on your platform. I was making an observation. Why are you in your feelings, sir? And this is what I'm talking about.
Over your feelings. Stop it. Dana's entitled to be argumentative or whatever. She puts all this stuff together. I just show up. Now, get out of your feelings. You're not feeling too damn much. 50 years ago, they were on a campaign to get men and boys deep into their feelings instead of being stoic and laid back and under self-control. Don't fall into that trap. Get out of your feelings. You can raise your voice, but don't sit there and deal with stuff because you get upset with your feelings being hurt. Even if you were otherwise cool, stop letting your feelings dictate what you do. You can talk all you want, yell all you want, raise your voice all you want. I am not giving much of a damn about that. I'm concerned about your behavior. Now, that's all we're talking about here today, behavior.
Luann, honey, she said, who is this woman? She an attorney? Yes, I'm a public defender. Is that it for the night, Judge?
Hey, be cool. You do not have any justification for killing somebody because you're about to get your butt whipped. If they're going to kill you, or is likely under the circumstance for them being on that pathway to killing you, yes. but you can't kill somebody just because you're worried about suffering some pain from a butt whipping. It doesn't work that way.
I think that that DA need to send you a thank you card because you giving him a lot of point.
Yeah, I got to deal with living in Memphis, which is the homicide capital of the United States of America, the 10th most dangerous city in the whole world. The next city in America that comes in on that list is about 10 or 12 below Memphis because of the incompetent idiots that can't run this town. And because of this stupidity that's going on out there, why'd you do it? I was emotional. Oh, hell.
Mm-hmm.
See, you can't walk any place in Memphis. You can't go. All of the restaurants in this chicken place are closing up because of the street crime.
You sell the chicken places.
I said in this chicken place,
Oh,
not
chicken.
place.
Oh.
I'm talking about all of the good restaurants
wait, hold on.
closing up here. Because you got these little overly emotional boys that are out of control.
Well,
but they don't have manhood. See, if you got manhood, you learn the manly art of self-defense. That's your obligation as you're growing up. By the time you're 17, you should know. And it does not consist of stabbing an unarmed man in the chest with a knife. That is a punk play, however you play it. If you're going to get your butt whipped, you take the butt whipping. You learn better so the next time that is not going to happen.
The manual says this ain't Jim Crow, Judge. Blacks not tolerating that type of shit.
That ain't shit got to do with black. That's just two boys, two of whom happen to be white. One was black. It ain't got nothing to do with it. It's rival teams. Now, if you want to talk about racism, yeah, you got racism, but you don't bust your butt into a situation where it will get busted in the penitentiary and risk doing time for some crap like this. If you want to get a comeback on it, get it. But this is not the way.
Listen. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely ridiculous. And most of you talking stuff wouldn't do a damn thing if a white man got all up in your face. Unless you backed up by your posse.
What can we say? But maybe that's why Karmelo stood his ground.
Except he didn't.
White boy got in his face and he didn't back off.
No, the point is he was all right till he stabbed him. And the problem is
I agree with that, because if you did not have the knife to stab him, or just did not have the knife and that wasn't an option, whatever the outcome would have been, fist fire, arguing, whatever, you would not be in a predicament. It's not worth all this.
Yes.
All this.
Well said, Miss Dana. Well said.
And listen, this whole conversation was about Karmelo Anthony. We did not forget, and I'm pretty sure other people did not forget, there was a child that lost his life. So that's we're not talking about Austin, because his family laid him to rest Saturday, and they have to deal with that and process that. So and that's heart-wrenching when a parent loses a child. That's one of the biggest fears, is being a parent, because you want to outlive your kids.
That's why a whole bunch of sissies are out there, because they've never been in an honest fist fight. Why? Because somebody pulls off a punk play like this in what is a fist fight situation, stabbing somebody or shooting somebody. Stand toe to toe and duke it out. If you get whipped, you get whipped. If you don't, you don't.
Can I pay to have the judge answer a question, but on a different subject from the past show you have done? Yeah, just if you send in a super chat with a question, I'll ask him.
Ask, please.
Con Shawnery. Well, honestly, we're about to close out. It's been 3 hours and I'm tired. Listen, everybody.
What's the question?
I don't know. He said, instead of you asking me, just send in a question that you want to ask. So it could be from other shows, because listen, especially if it's about the law. Like, yes, you could go back, and if it's a question directly for the judge, it doesn't matter if it's from a previous show. You could always ask the question. Yes. So send.
Go ask me the question. Send your question in. Type it up. See, I'm not trying to say go run from something. Never run unless you have to effectuate a fast retreat because you're overmatched. All right? That happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the point is don't pull off a punk play and stab somebody because you can't stand up to them fisticuffs wise. That is not how it goes.
Yeah. All right. So in the next show, XCC, because I'm tired and I got to do a little bit of editing tonight, and I have to get my physical tomorrow. So yeah.
This is just crazy what I'm listening to. This is why we have a breakdown of law and order in the cities. This has nothing to do with white and black because I see just as many black kids get done in for the same reason. Some punk comes up, knifes them, shoots them, and says, I thought I was defending myself. You can't shoot somebody or stab somebody when all he's got is his fist.
H. Lewis, my cash app is $ Dana with the data. Yeah, but see, that's the thing. He's gonna do jail time.
He might.
I think
get off.
I think he's going to do jail because the example is not because he's black. The example is, listen, you can't, it's not acceptable for kids to think, well, if I'm being bullied, I can have a weapon to defend myself. That's not how you combat against a bully. You know what I'm saying? Or that's not how you combat against someone, your peers that's bothering you or physically putting hands on you or whatever the case may be. I'm just saying bully. You can't say, oh, I'm going to keep a weapon on me just in case a bully try to attack me, because you may end up killing that person, even though it may not be intentional. And then you're going to go through all this. The conversation does need to start being around, and maybe we could talk about that tomorrow in your X Space. Conflict resolution.
Yeah, conflict resolution. See, even if you are carrying a pistol, which a lot of people are doing legally these days, they are not permitted to pull that gun and shoot somebody just because it's a one-on-one situation or a two-on-one situation where their fist exchanged. You can't shoot somebody for that unless I repeat this so you don't say you never heard it. You have to be at risk of suffering death or bodily injury or some kind of harm that may cause death. Now, that's the only way you'll get away with self-defense. You can't shoot somebody just because they may be with you.
Right. All right.
A whole lot of people have taken a butt whipping, a behind whipping, gotten ass kicked. That doesn't mean they can shoot the person that beat them.
Right. All right, everybody. Good night. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for liking, for sharing, for commenting, and most importantly, for donating. And you can check the judge out tomorrow night on X Space at Judge Joe Brown TV on X at 9 p.m. or 10, one of those times. And he's going to talk about conflict resolution with adults and teenagers, minors, and stuff like that. Conflict resolution. That's going to be the topic. So, all right, Judge.
Yeah, well, close out. Just, life is life. And there's some things worth putting it all on the line, and there's some things where it's not. So you better learn to control yourself, because generally, always, when you want to say I was emotional or your feelings are into what controls what you're doing wrong. Be strong. And if you're worried about getting a butt whipping, spend some of your money not on your Gucci jeans and Air Jordans. Go take some martial arts courses so you learn what you're doing. And sometimes if you have to take somebody's life in self-defense, it happens all the time. But there's no reason to be stuck on stupid to do it lightly.
Yeah. All right.
Now,
Everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be good. Sometimes I'll say man's got to do what a man's got to do. But this isn't part of that process.
Operative word, man. Not male or boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night. See you on X Space tomorrow. Oh my God, Faith, come on. Thank
Miss
you, Faith.
Faith, what do you want?
She says, so why wasn't George Zimmerman charged?
George Zimmerman?
Yeah, he was charged. That's why
he was charged. He just beat the case at trial.
You're welcome, Eben.
Jury represented his group, his peer group. Now, this boy may beat this trial, but Zimmerman got charged. And let me say this.
Okay, so this is the guy's question.
Counsel representing the deceased in that Zimmerman matter didn't know what the hell they were doing.
So this is the thing. This is the question. He said, question of sovereignty in case law or history.
What are you talking about? Sovereign entities are like municipal governments, city governments, county governments, state governments, and the government of the United States. People are not sovereign individually. They're sovereign collectively.
He spelled it Covereigenty.
I don't know what that is.
Sovereign.
So it's sovereignty.
Sovereignty, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sovereignty in case law or history.
Sovereignty in case law, if it's a government, it's sovereign. If it's a government and it's sovereign, it's got sovereign immunity. You cannot sue it without its permission.
Okay.
Can you see the king allowing his subjects to sue him, to depose him? Ain't gonna happen.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Now, okay, tell me when you cut it.
All right, I gotta roll the closing, the outro. So I'm gonna put you backstage. Bye, guys.